favor as you come into the chat room, please hit that like button, please share, and please subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel. Also, tours are still coming up, so we have a couple of announcements. Then we'll jump into the topic. Sierra Leone, we are still rolling to Sierra Leone November 20th through December 3rd. November 20th through December 3rd, we are still rolling to Sierra Leone. So if you want to join us, please visit Danfo, 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 Danfo dot Africa. Again, please visit Danfo, Danfo dot Africa. Also, people are always asking, Dynast, where do you get your gear from? Again, people are always asking, Dynast, where do you get your gear from? Please visit Ileamir, ILEAMIR.com and buy your gear, all of your shirts. That's where you could go to purchase them. So we'll greatly appreciate that. And again, like, share, and subscribe. Let me give a quick disclaimer. By no means am I saying go boycott the woman king. Again, in no means am I saying go boycott the woman king. We're going to take a look at the trailer. I've already viewed the trailer, but I have a couple questions from viewing the trailer. And it kind of ties, well, not kind of, it does tie into the history of Dahomey and how they're going to spin this. Because from the trailer, from viewing the trailer, it seems as if they're trying to spin this into a, black girl magic, black woman empowerment film. What we have to understand, and people, I have visited Dahomey, our present day Benin Kingdom. I go every year for the Voodoo Festival. I go every year, and I have been to Obome. I have been to King Gezo, who John Boyega is playing in this film. I've been to his former palace. I know the history. I've been told the history by the locals. And pretty much King Gezo and the Amazons, which was his female bodyguards, by far were the most treacherous, enslaving, selling out to white people through selling African slaves to white people, murderous, practicing human sacrificing kingdom, probably in the history of Africa. So I'm trying to figure out, with that being said, which is all documented, how they're going to spin that into, this black girl magic and female empowerment flick. Gezo was a monster. If you study history, Gezo was a monster. Well, we have to understand the Dahomey Kingdom, which is where Ouida is located. Ouida, the majority of slaves that were shipped to the West were shipped from Ouida. Again, some people might say Angola, but they're never specific on where in Angola. But the majority of slaves that were shipped to the West were shipped from Ouida. Okay. And they were captured by the Dahomey Kingdom, and they were sold to white people. In fact, I'm reading a book right now, listening to a book. I'm almost done with it. It's called Barracoon, and it tells the story of Cujo. There we go, Walt. Read Barracoon. I'm about to pull it up right now. Barracoon, let me pull this up. Give me a second.
I know Kuzula.
Here we go. Barracoon which tells the story of the last slave that was shipped to America from Africa, Cujo Lewis, was captured by Dahomey and sold to um, a white man from Alabama. Was sold to a white man from Alabama. Again, Barracoon, the story of Cujo Lewis, was captured by Dahomey and sold to a white man illegally. Because at that time, I mean, this tells you the mindset of Dahomey. Again, this tells you the mindset of the Dahomey kingdom. All right. Slavery was banned by the French and by the British. Now, were they being nice or farewell or, probably not, but it was banned. King Gezo agreed to the ban. Then later on, he reneged and went back to enslaving Africans and selling them. And after he passed away, this continued to go on. So you have Cujo Lewis, who, a Nigerian man, was kidnapped by Dahomey and sold to a slave trader from Alabama illegally. Well, it's all illegal, but illegally. During slavery, when it was legal, it was still a barbaric illegal, a barbaric practice, legal, illegal. It was still barbaric. And so again, he was kidnapped by Dahomey and sold to a white man from Alabama. And I've been to Africatown, I've been to Plateau. I've actually been to his very grave where he's buried in Plateau in Africatown. And in this memoir, in this story, he shares and tells how brutal Dahomey was. How they were cutting heads off, enslaving other Africans. And he said himself that pretty much he was hurt or upset that white people enslaved them, but he was more upset and more hurt that it was Africans who sold him to the white people. You guys need to pick this up. So again, when you research, and when it comes to the Dahomey kingdom, they didn't hide it. It wasn't something that was swept under the rug. King Gezo, along with the Amazonians, they were very bold and proud when it came to this practice. Very bold, very proud, had no problem selling other Africans to white people. And that's just the reality. Me, myself, I've experienced reconciliation. I'm not upset. I'm not upset of the role that Africans played in the slave trade. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't try to spin it like, oh, we were prisoners of war. And, there's a difference between serfdom and slavery and indigent servants and slavery. And the Africans just didn't know what these white men were going to do to us. Like, I don't play those games. Africans sold other Africans into slavery, period. Okay, period. And that's the reality of it. And how they're going to spin this is going to be very interesting. Again, this is not a call to boycott. I'm not like that. But I'm interested to see how they're going to spin this. Because the Dahomey kingdom, this is what, especially under King Gezo, this is how they rolled. This is how they rolled. This is what they practiced. This is what they did. There's no secret about it. This is what they did. This was up front and center. Again, this was up front and center. This was their MO. This is how they got down. This is how they got down. They would capture other Africans and sell them to white people, and they were unapologetic about it. Again, they would capture other Africans, sell them to white people, practice human sacrifice. There were also acts of cannibalism. And there was no secret about it. This was their MO. This is how they rolled, along with the female Amazons, who were the personal bodyguards, and many of them were the wives as well of King Gezo. And in fact, if you study Dahomey during this time period, there was a slave trader from Brazil, Francisco de Souza. Again, Francisco de Souza. If you study the history, Francisco de Souza courted King Gezo, and King Gezo allowed. In fact, if you go to Abome, which I've been to, the video's on my page, Francisco de Souza's quarters, where he had 80 Amazonian wives. He had his own private quarters and home right there at the palace of King Gezo. And him and King Gezo were capturing slaves by the hundreds of thousands and selling them and shipping them from Muida. King Gezo, along with Francisco de Souza, were by far the largest slave traders when it came to the transatlantic slave trade. Again, Francisco de Souza and King Gezo, again, were the largest slave traders on the planet when it came to the transatlantic slave trade. Is well documented. Look it up. And they were shipped from Muida, where I go every year for the Voodoo Festival. And the female bodyguards, the Amazons, sorry, they were heavily involved in that. Again, they were heavily involved. No, listen, the movie looks great. I'm not saying boycott the movie, but again, the reality is I'm trying to figure out how they're going to spin this into a female Black woman empowerment movie. Oh, the movie's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. But trust me, Dahomey, along with the Amazons, who Viola Davis is playing a general, one of the generals of the Amazons, we're capturing women, Black women, African women. We're capturing other African women. We're capturing African children. We're capturing African men by the thousands, hundreds of thousands, and selling them to white people. Period. So how they're going to spend that, I don't know. And that's just my question. How are they going to spend that? I mean, this is Hollywood, so no telling how Hollywood is gonna. I mean, it's Hollywood. But that made up that during that time period of the Dahomey Kingdom, that's what they did. Like, that's what they did. When I saw that John Boyega was playing King Gezo, I was like, okay, there's no way they could omit the human sacrificing and Francisco. In fact, I don't even think Francisco de Souza. So I was looking at the actual cast in the film. And so John Boyega is playing King Gezo. Viola Davis is there. But I'm not sure if somebody is playing Francisco de Souza. And it's like, hold on one second. Yeah, I don't know if anybody's playing Francisco de Souza. I'm like, how is Francisco de Souza being omitted from this film? Like, him and King Gezo were Batman Robin when it came to the slave trade. Again, and um, him and King Gezo were Batman Robin when it came to the slave trade. And we're not talking just a few slaves. We're talking hundreds of thousands, hundreds and thousands, hundreds of thousands of slaves. I mean, they rode together. I mean, they were sidekicks. So, maybe he might be in the movie, but from reading the cast of the film, I don't see where he's mentioned. Like, you can't omit Francisco de Souza. That was him and King Gezo were like this. King Gezo gave him 80 wives. Amazons were married to him. He had his own private quarters on King Gezo's property in Abome. It's still there. Like, everything is still there. A Mexican director and white story writers whose best hit is Love and Basketball going to do a good African movie. Hollywood about to make this woke as you know what. Yeah. My only problem with this movie is that it makes black women look too butch and masculine. Well, yeah. How many kids? He had a ton of kids. Francisco had a ton. In fact, Francisco de Souza is considered like the patriarch of like Brazilians who relocated to America, relocated to Africa. He's considered like the patriarch, the man. But like I said, he had, when it comes to this slave trade and the transatlantic slave trade, he was the number one dealer, and he worked hand in hand with King Gezo. So, like I said, how they're going to spin it, I don't know, but it's going to be interesting how they're going to make this woke. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a white savior somewhere. I know there's going to be a white savior, and I could be wrong. And once I watch the movie, I'll come and do a review of it. I won't be shocked if like the Amazons like partner with the white guy, the white savior, and they save the Africans. I don't know. It's going to be something that just in real life was not true. I mean, it's going to be crazy. I just see a white savior. Yeah, and Larry, I was going to get to that point. The ending does not end well. Dahomey and the Amazons lost the war to the French and were colonized. So it doesn't end well. So it's crazy. The same French and even Portuguese and even white Americans that Dahomey was selling slaves to, they came back. Those same very white people, French, in this case, the French, who the homies were selling slaves to. Hey, the homies, thank you for the slaves, but now we're going to colonize you. And they came back and colonized them and pretty much wiped them out. Now, I don't think Francisco was an ex-slave. I think Sariki Abbas, who was in Badagry in Nigeria, he was an ex-slave. But I don't think Francisco de Souza was an ex-slave. I think he was just Brazilian. You know, I don't think Francisco de Souza was an ex-slave, but he might have been. I might be wrong. But I think he was just. Uh, I think he was just full. I think he was just Brazilian. But Sariki Abbas in Badagry, he was an ex-slave, and so he was enslaved. Told his Brazilian slave masters that, hey, look, free me, let me go back to Africa, and I will make you rich by funneling slaves from Africa back to you. And that's what he did. But as far as Francisco de Souza, I don't think he was an ex-slave. I think he was just a Brazilian trader who showed up to Dahomey, partnered with King Gezo and the Amazons, and just, like I said, the levels of enslaving that they did, no other empire was involved in and complicit in the level of just butchery and slavery that the Dahomey Empire, what kingdom was during King Gezo's reign, along with Francisco de Souza and the Amazons. So I'm just trying to figure out how they're going to twist that, because there's no way you can just overlook that when it comes to this story. Again, there's no way you can overlook that when it comes to this story. So, guys, let's play the trailer real quick. Let's play the trailer, and then we'll open up the lines and we'll take some phone calls. And the movie's called The Woman King, which that's already woke. The Woman King. Why not just the Woman Queen? so, so yeah, I got a feeling it's gonna be on some, you know what? So.
An evil is coming that threatens our kingdom, our freedom. But we have a weapon they are not prepared for.
My king, the Europeans wish to conquer us. They will not stop until the whole of.
Yeah, and so let's stop it right there. My king, the Europeans wish to conquer us. Yes, after years of you guys partnering with the Europeans, again, my king, the Europeans wish to conquer us. Yes, after years of you guys partnering with the Europeans in slavery. Again, after years of you all partnering with the Europeans in the slave trade, in selling slaves, African slaves, your own brothers and sisters, to these Europeans. See, like they're kind of skipping that part. I mean, and again, this is not the whole movie. This is just a trailer. But the Home was complicit, was the most complicit kingdom when it came to slavery with the Europeans. So, the Europeans, they wish to conquer us. Yeah, after you sold hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of slaves to the Europeans, they were like, okay, now it's time to enslave them and defeat them, which ultimately, Dahomey was defeated and colonized.
Africa is theirs. We must fight back for our people.
Haneska, you are asking me to take them to war. War.
Some things are worth fighting for.
Don't know, take my power. Don't know, take my power.
You are called to join the King's Guard.
Don't know, take my power.
No kingdom in all of Africa shares this privilege. Train hard, fight harder. We fear no one. And we fear no pain. I offer you a choice. Fight or we die.
Ready for war, where you going?
To be a warrior, you must kill your tears.
We are the spear of victory. We are the blade of freedom. We are the spear of victory. Spear of victory.
Yeah, you saw them making out with the Europeans. Again, they were just this kingdom was just a kingdom of sellouts. I mean, yeah, I mean, the guy. Oh my God, Richard, that's an excuse. This whole slavery was practiced throughout Africa, but it wasn't chattel slavery like what the European practice. Dude, it's an excuse, and we're gonna get into that. Yeah. So you know, a lot of this is gonna be going on. Hold on. Yeah, there you go. He light skinned. Okay, all right. I mean, I'm just saying, like this, and I'm not speaking for the entire Dahomey kingdom during its lifespan, but during this period with King Gezo and the Amazons, they were selling out. I mean, and it's well documented. It's well documented.
We are the blade of freedom. We are Dahomey.
Don't know, take my power. Don't know, take my power.
Guys, like I said, you know, I'm gonna watch the movie. I'm gonna watch the movie, but again, I'm gonna be very disappointed if they omit the huge role that Dahomey played in the slave trade. Like like when it comes to this specific kingdom, you cannot omit that. You can't skip that. You know, kissing the Europeans or whatever, whatever. Okay, that's whatever. You know, I'm not even really focused or tripping off, you know, the Dahomey Amazon warriors making love to the Europeans. That's whatever. Like I said, Francisco de Souza had a whole, he had 80 of them to himself. He had 80 of them to himself. Brazilian. He had 80 of them to himself. So that's just what it is. It's whatever. But again, they cannot skip out or leave out the role they played in slavery. That's going to be a problem. That's going to be a major problem. Like I said, Francisco de Souza, you guys are talking about when the Amazon was kissing the white guy. Francisco de Souza had 80 Amazons as his personal wives in his stable, or concubines, whatever you want to call it. So it's whatever. I'm not even tripping off that. But again, and then we're going to open up the lines. They started going to war with the Europeans, right? After the Europeans wanted to colonize them, because Dahomey was selling slaves wholesale to these white Europeans. Wholesale. Like I said, Ouida, the majority of slaves that got shipped to the West were shipped from Ouida. And again, the brutality, human sacrificing, alleged cannibalism. Like, it's gonna be hard to omit that from the movie. Now, this is a movie about the Ashanti Kingdom and maybe other kingdoms. Yeah, you can kind of probably omit this and omit that and still have a good movie and or whatnot. But with this, yeah, you can't. This was their life. This is how they roll. This was their lifestyle. But guys, I'll put the link in the chat room. I'll put the link in the chat room if you guys want to call in. You're more than welcome to call in and we can add to the conversation. Again, do me a favor, hit that like button. Please hit that like button. Again, please hit that like button. Link is in the chat room. Link is in the chat room. Click on that link and you're more than welcome. Is in the chat room. Here we go. America First Rifleman, go ahead.
Man, this is the thing about it. Hollywood is poison. This is a kind of another movie I'm gonna let folks like you and other Pan-Africans do kind of a react slash roast on this bullshit. I'm gonna just wait until I can get it on 1, 2, 3 movies and just see it then. But the fact remains is that we love being tethered to white people. That's it. Like, the white zaddy's gonna go there, be with his Amazons, and he's gonna either be betrayed, but there's gonna be some hot love thing. Like Viola Davis, she done kissed 1,000 white men in Hollywood. So
she's actually said out of her mouth that I'm paraphrasing it, but she said out of her mouth that she'll pretty much wants to kiss more and have more, sex scenes with white men. Which, hey, listen, do your thing. I'm not hating. Do your thing, man. Do your thing. Get your money. Do your thing. So,
and it's just really like the biggest tragedy in this.
She pretty much said that. I think the movie with Liam Nelson. Right, and she was just like, she wants to do more movies where she could act out love scenes with white men. Which is, listen, do your thing.
Yeah, actually, I would say the biggest tragedy for me, because at the end of the day, we can kind of make fun of all that part of it where our women like Zaddy and all that, but the biggest tragedy is there's been heroic Africans on the continent fighting against slavery that they could have depicted, a whole bunch of them, and they just go all over that to the actual slave kingdom and make them look like heroes of some type. That's the thing that pisses me off the most. There's just a long history of Africans going against colonial figures. So,
yes, sir. Larry, go ahead, brother.
Hi, hello, greetings. Little side note info. the Amazons eventually ended up in America. They ended up in the Buffalo Bill Wild West show. And whilst the show was going on and the Native Americans who were there would do their things, then they'd bring out the Amazons and they would perform for the audience. So yeah, they somehow Buffalo Bill found out about them and honored them by, I don't know if they were paid well, but in regards to the slavery thing, yeah, it was.
So you're saying the actual Amazons ended up in America and were performing like
yeah, in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, when Buffalo Bill had that show and he was touring around America and he had some Native Americans who decided to join him in that show. He then had some of the Amazons from Dahomey. Some of them ended up in that show as well. So they ended up in America and people would pay money and they'd see, I think was Sitting Bull there at one point. They had some Native Americans there, and then the Dahomeys were there as well, the Amazons. So they were in the Buffalo Bill Wild West show for a while, yeah, in America. Yeah. So
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. In regards to the slavery thing as well, yeah, he was bad, but I'm not going to give them any excuses. But I think it'd be hard to make a movie about any part of West Africa. All those kingdoms were knee deep in the slave trade.
Right.
I don't know. You would struggle. You'd have to. I can't think of any major kingdom that you could make a movie about that wasn't involved in slavery. Even if you went to the north of Africa, they were involved in slavery. I don't know. Maybe you'd have to go to the east. Maybe the Maasai never did slavery. Maybe there was some woman there who was some female warrior. I don't know. I don't know enough about the Maasai, but West Africa, you don't stand a chance. I'd say the bulk of the tribes, not all of them, but the major kingdoms, the Ashanti, they were in it. The Yoruba were in it. Sokoto Caliphate, they were in it. Benin Kingdom, they were in it. Kingdom of Boni, they were involved. Songhai, they were involved. Mali, everyone in the West. Well, the major kingdoms, they were all involved there. So I've been trying to find interviews on her to see if she's been called out by people, saying, hold on a minute, how do you feel about this history about Dahomey? I haven't had any luck as of yet.
Yeah, right. All these other kingdoms were involved, but Dahomey under King Gezo, like he took it to a whole nother level, like a whole nother level. So I'm just trying to figure out how they're gonna dance around that, or it'd be great if they just confront it, like maybe before the white people start fighting them, and they're like, listen, she's drilling.
They can't confront it.
Well, this is what you did.
How are they going to confront it? That's like saying they should do Wakanda and talk about slavery. You ain't going to associate slavery with Wakanda. But think about it. Wakanda's so rich. How do they trade? Who do they trade with? Where do they make their money from?
So here we go. This is probably what they're going to do. Somebody just said it. They're going to be like the Dahomey female warriors didn't want to participate in the slave trading, but the male warriors did and forced them to do it. I got a feeling that's coming. I got a feeling that's coming.
They were forced into
it. After they saw the 100th African winner on their trip to North America, then they started feeling bad. Then they started feeling some type of way. That's what's gonna happen. Or one of their cousins gonna get taken.
Right. And especially
somebody left a comment I wanted to quickly address. Somebody left a comment saying Sokoto and Mali was trans-Sahara slave trade. That's not true. The Sokoto Caliphate fought against the Oyo Kingdom, and the Yorubas who were captured by the Sokoto Caliphate, they would sell them. Likewise, I think the Oyo Kingdom, when they captured people within the Sokoto Caliphate, they would sell them as well. So Sokoto Caliphate was involved in buying and selling Africans, capturing Africans. It wasn't necessarily just the Sahara, the transatlantic. They were involved in it. Mali as well. Mali were holding on to slaves. It wasn't just because of the transatlantic. Mali were involved. Songhai were involved. It was just a way of life for them. I don't agree with it, but
yeah, a lot of their economies were based on slavery. So I'm gonna hop off, but Illyri, keep up with your good history, because especially that one about them going to Wild Bill's little circus thing, I never even knew about that. So but yeah, y'all keep going on that history, so I really appreciate it. And this movie's gonna be well, it's gonna be good for the Shea Butter crowd, but you know, it's just like slave play, but in it's like that stage play, slave play or whatever. It's just gonna be the same thing for them, just in West Africa. So anyway, salute to the panel. Peace.
KBM, aka White Jesus. Go ahead and unmute yourself. KBM, unmute yourself. Okay, she left. All right, so the back, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, brother. You know, one interesting thing that I saw in that preview is the depiction of the topography of Dahomey. The earliest European depictions, they compared it. They actually said that it was larger than Paris and London itself, and the architectural design was far more advanced than that of Paris and London at the time of their colonization of Dahomey. How they have it looking now is in its present day. That's after they set villages on fire while people were resting at night. But these are certain things that we have to kind of reintroduce into the world as how far advanced architecturally we were, because they'll use that also as a reason to mentally control us and put us down like we were not that advanced until we met them. But those were some of the immediate things that I noticed. It does not look like the Dahomey.
Right. No. Black. Somebody just said in the chat room. I was going to bring that up. That was Benin Kingdom in present-day Nigeria that they were referring to, not Dahomey, which is current-day Benin Republic.
I heard that. Is it okay if I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Bandit.
Yeah, from what I've read, I don't know, but I heard that the Dahomeys were getting pretty much held by the Yoruba.
Well, they were at war with the Oyo Empire. In fact,
Yeah,
what's interesting when you go to Benin, so like in Ouida, there's a Oba in Ouida, and then when you're in Cotonou, there's Obas everywhere. Like from Cotonou to Sydney border, which is right outside of Cotonou, which separates is the border between Nigeria and Benin Republic. Like Cotonou, for the most part, is that's like little Nigeria. Same thing with Porto Novo. Like it's like little Nigeria. You have Yoruba speaking people, but instead of speaking English as well, they speak French. So it's interesting.
But I mean, but before those borderlines was drawn in 1885 or 1884, those were the same region. And so all we're dealing with is just the British cut a line straight through the Benin Kingdom.
Yeah, but
other colonizing countries. Yes.
But Benin Republic was further, I guess that would be east of, like way further east of where current day Benin Republic is. Like Benin Kingdom was, that was deep in southwest Nigeria.
I mean, I could be wrong, but when I heard about it was that pretty much that the Yoruba were whooping the Dahomeys' butt because Benin was whooping Oyo's butt.
Yeah.
No, what happened was the Oyo Kingdom and the Dahomey Kingdom, they were fighting for power. The Oyo Kingdom was successful and conquered Dahomey, and so Dahomey became a vassal state of the Oyo Kingdom for a while. But then eventually the Oyo Kingdom went through a decline. There was infighting, political unrest, and some of the Yoruba clans started to break off. It was during that period that the Dahomey Kingdom was able to break off and have their own autonomy. I know back in 1851, there was the Egba Dahomey War. The Egba, their particular clan within the Yorubas. So there was this back and forth between both of them. Both of them were committing atrocities, I mean, slavery and whatnot. But there was a time when the Oyo Kingdom ruled over Dahomey, lost its power, and then Dahomey started coming back. And yes, the Oyo kingdom then tried to go down to the southeast to invade the Benin kingdom, but failed. The Benin kingdom defended themselves, so the Oyo kingdom couldn't. And to the north of the Oyo kingdom, they had the Sokoto Caliphate, and they lost land. So Ilori, they lost Ilori to the Sokoto Caliphate. So yeah, but they were all fighting each other, trying to dominate each other, and doing crazy things to each other.
What was the fighting style of the Dahomey? Because I know that the Yorubas and the Benin, they had a fighting style called Ija. The Yorubas were Ijakari, but the Dahomey, what was theirs?
Well, the obvious.
Go ahead, Larry.
I was going to say the obvious thing, which was also shown in the trailer that Dynast played, was that the Dahomey, they didn't use the Dahomey kingdom, populated by the Fon. They didn't use horses as much. So those Amazonians, they weren't really riding horses. I don't know. I haven't seen any. I could be wrong, but I haven't seen that much literature on them riding horses.
No, you're about right, because I know the Oyo Empire, they had a strong emphasis on like cavalry.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Teddy. Unmute yourself, Teddy.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hear you just fine. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me? Okay.
Hear you not well. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so my thing is, in watching the trailer, and to your point about, Black folks or Africans participating in the slave trade, my concern is, how white folks want to say, yeah, okay, Africans participate in the slave trade. If it is in the movie that happened, that gives them more ammunition to use against Black folks. If you get what I'm saying, where I'm going with this. See, so we can never claim, okay, it was all white folks that did it and this, that, and the other thing. Well, we know Black folks, they were sellouts in that time, participating in the slave trade. So my concern is now white folks will have this defense against Black folks when they say, well, it was only white folks. And also the demand, where was the demand coming from? Was it coming from Black folks? It was white folks who were demanding it. So the question hasn't been asked, why did the white folks need Black folks in the first place?
Yeah,
go ahead.
My thing is for me, I know I might sound like a little liberal on this, but I feel like the fact that they're showing that an African kingdom period is something that should be looked at. Yeah, of course it comes with its absences, like the brutality, and like Dinah said, with all the with all the cooning they had going on in there. But at the end of the day, like, it kind of puts a highlight on African history, and I feel like and rightfully so. Yeah, we should look at everything from the objective perspective, because when you look at empires didn't grow from peace treaties and all these other stuff and all that. They grew from war, and like even before the Atlantic slave trade, there was slavery. Even before the Saharan slave trade, there was slavery. So, but at the end of the day, that's just how empires grew all around the world. So my thing is, don't worry about what white people are going to say about Dahomey and say, look, they did this and all this other stuff. That for me, that doesn't matter. It's about a kingdom that rose up and fell, and it just shine light on stuff on African history. We got to stop looking at this ordeal of what outsiders think about a kingdom. But I do agree that, yeah, we have to look at things from an objective perspective and stop letting people with subjective ways of thinking criticize what goes on. We are the ones that decide the morals of our history and all this other stuff, not everybody else.
Cujo, go ahead. Cujo, then I'll pass it to Jose. Go ahead, Cujo, mute yourself.
Okay, thank you. I'm kind of like waiting.
Hey, Cujo, do you have like a fan on in the background, or the window open, or?
No, I don't. I don't have my microphone, but I'll just talk close. I'll turn my camera on. Um, I think that I'm gonna wait to see the movie. I am kind of interested in when it actually, when the time period that they're talking about, because there's far more nuance than what I've heard talked about on, in this particular conversation. Um, the whole Amazon thing with amongst the Fawn people who founded Dahomey, um, it was based on a response from, like someone that mentioned earlier, the Oyo Empire. It was based on the wars they had with the Yoruba, who had a large scale cavalry and firearms, and they pretty much ran that region for a few hundred years. The thing about the Dahomey, what makes Dahomey different is they were one of the last trading posts. They were one of the last trading posts. They were still in existence in the late 1800s, probably even into the 1900s. They were still in existence. The whole Clotilda thing, they went to Dahomey. The Cujo guy, they went to Dahomey. So
right.
There's a lot of nuance in it. I don't look at them as traders and sellouts because they looked at themselves as a distinct people. It is what it is. I mean, it sounds bad. It sounds bad to us because we're looking at it from a black perspective, from an African perspective. I don't think they shared that perspective with us. I don't think they shared it at all. I'm very interested in seeing how they play the movie out because they did. They stood up to the Europeans. They were one of the last groups to fall, and that was in the 1900s when they fell. But the reason I'm wondering the time frame is because by the time that their homie was fighting Europeans, like I think it's been insinuated, at least in this conversation, they would have had countless firearms. They would have had countless firearms by then because that was one of the main trade goods that they had. And you're right, they were amongst the most brutal. And when I seen the trailer and she said the homie, my hairs rose on my back because I'm like, whoa. I don't know how they're going to do that one because they were brutal. I mean, they cut off the babies' heads and old people's heads, to put fear in the people who they were attacking. The Fawn were ruthless, but they were people of their time. I mean, we don't look at Julius Caesar and be like, oh, when he came back from when he crossed the Rubicon, when he came back from Gaul, he brought 200,000 slaves. We don't look at that as like he enslaved other white people. We don't. Because we are taught to recognize the distinction amongst Europeans. However, when we speak about it amongst ourselves, they got to be sellouts. They were people of their time. Big up Virginia. I look forward to the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Al. Oh, I'm sorry, Jose. Go ahead, Jose. Unmute yourself.
Let me unmute myself. Right, I called in with to react at the chat and to call out this movie as a psyop because of the reactions of the chat, our people looking for excuses, etc. And I really believe there's a psyop taste to it. I mean, Mariah and Becky, famous of some Hollywood Jezebel type of shit. So maybe we should look at who financed, who paid for them to make the movie. But the chat is getting interesting and a lecture. So now I have questions for Illyri and other people that know. I mean, I assume that know what they are talking about the history. So I have a question. Those huge kingdoms. I mean, if you go, I frequent Senegal and the Gambia, and I am Cape Verdean, and in Senegal alone, there's 32 or 33 ethnicities. So imagine those huge kingdoms. How many ethnicities were in them? Were there? Was that by force? Was that conquered, or a mix between conquered and united, like convinced, or the type of subjugation was not that harsh as we know from Urugu, from Europeans. This is a question. And that's question one. And question two is Eleri, I believe you. You know, the Western Africa. It's hard to find someone clean. You know, with clean hands in this slave trade business. I believe that. But when was that? You know, I believe it all was at the end, after centuries of European attacks and presence. Okay. Is that true? Thank you for having me, Dynast. And
sure. In regards to your last question, was it true? Slavery always existed, but the thing that you mentioned, which contributed to slavery becoming more of a demand, was because of the people who came in to trade with the Africans, the Europeans. And one of the things that they liked to trade in was slaves. So that then escalated something which already existed there. It wasn't done en masse, as we later found out, for the transatlantic slave trade. But slavery did exist, but then they found that these people who they were hosting, because in the Benin Kingdom, you did have Portuguese who stayed within the kingdom as guests. They were trading, bringing guns, and one of the things that they seemed to want a lot of was slaves. So the kingdoms would then go out of their way to trade with these Europeans, and then they would start waging even more war, unnecessary war, you might say, on their neighbors. And in regards to that's what I believe, that's what I remember, but I don't mind if anyone has any information to correct me on. In regards to your first question, I can only speak on the Oyo kingdom. There were different clans, Yoruba clans. You had the Ekiti, the Egba, the Ijebu, the Awori, the Yorubas of Ibadan. And some of them joined together to create the kingdom. Others were forced to join the kingdom. And the reason I say that is because later on, as the kingdom went through a decline, there were a lot of people, because of infighting, there were a lot of people who broke off to form their own kingdoms, which is why if you go to Nigeria up till this day, within Yoruba land, and you will find that there are different clans that have their own king. The Egbas have the Alake of Egba land. The Ekiti have their own guy. The Aworis have their own. The Ijebus have the Awujale of Ijebu land. So they're all, and then there's the Oni of Ile-Ife, and then there's the Oba, the Alafin of Oyo. So all these of Oyo, yeah. So some of them were forced into this kingdom. Some of them joined willingly, and a number of them chose the opportunity to leave. There was later on, there was a battle. I was going to talk about it later on, in which it's actually quite a harrowing story, in which a particular tribe called the Ara in Ekiti land, which was part of Yoruba land, committed mass suicide because the Yorubas of Ibadan came to fight them. And so they couldn't defeat them. So there was just, they committed mass suicide. I mean, I could put the link for people to read that in the chat. So it seems there were certain people who did not want to be part of the kingdom. They wanted to be on their own, do their own thing. And there were those who wanted to be part of the kingdom. So it was a mixture. It wasn't straightforward. It was nuanced. It was mixed. Some wanted to be part of this confederation. Others were forced into it. So that's what happened in the history, and which is why I guess in Nigeria they're so independent, the Yorubas, that it's broken up. Because when I was a kid, Osun was part of Oyo State, but then I guess they wanted some form of independence, so they cut it. So now you have Osun, which is I think where you went for the Oshogo festival, Dynast. You went to Osun State. That used to be part of Oyo, of Oyo State, but then they cut it up. And then Ekiti used to be part of Ondo State, and they cut it up. So even fast forward into the day, there seem a lot of the Yoruba clans, not all of them, they still crave for that independence. They don't want to, and they have their own kings, which they're very proud of. So I hope that answered with what little knowledge I have, but I'm open to anyone who has more information, because I'm speaking with what little knowledge I have.
Thank you. I have an example from Senegal, and that's how Mandinka quote unquote conquer with love. And that's told from the people I deal with, which is Jola and Serer. actually whatever. I'll keep private shit out, but the explanation is if you have children that have Mandinka friends, the parents out of love of their Mandinka heritage and identity, they will teach your children to speak Mandinka. So they conquer with love. That's I wanted to share that. Hey, thanks, Dynast.
No problem. In NGTO 92, go ahead.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you for having me on here. Can you guys hear me?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay. So I saw the trailer for The Woman King, and I also looked at the cast that was playing the movie. To be honest, I'm kind of disappointed because they didn't get anyone from that region to be in that part of the movie.
Well,
A lot of
that's interesting you said that because who's the guy that played in Amistad, Larry? That played
Boyega?
His name is Jaimon Honsu or Jimon Honsu.
Yeah. He's from there. He's from there.
Yeah.
Right, but I feel like they should had more of them from that region, more of the Togo and Benin region in that.
Yeah, but they really don't do that in movies. They do basically the best actor and actresses for the most part. When you're dealing with movies like this, they're going to get the job. I mean, Digimon also he wasn't from Sierra Leone, but he played Singapore. Singapore, yeah, Singapore. I think how you pronounce his name. But go ahead.
I mean, I think I don't know. I just find that very insulting to me, and I don't know. I just feel like they didn't really thought this well before bringing out the movie, because it looks like they're trying to show empowerment for the wrong reasons.
Well, and that's my question. So when you know the history of the Dahomey kingdom and the Amazons, I'm trying to figure out how they're going to flip that into women, or specifically Black women empowerment. That's my question. It's going to be very interesting.
I think the thing is for people like NGTO 92 and yourself, Dynast, you guys read a lot, so Hollywood can't pull the wool over your eyes. But there are going to be a lot of people, black, white, brown, who don't know any better. They're going to see this. They're going to love it because it looks like a brilliant action-packed movie, which shows what you said, empowerment. And like I said, they there's no Black Panther around, so this will be the next best thing, and he'll do a good job. But for those who've read history books, they're going to be quite naturally irritated because they'll be like, wait a minute, there's stuff you guys aren't showing. So, but I think most people aren't on the level of you guys, so Hollywood will get away with it, I reckon.
Exactly, because I mean, I'm from Nigeria, and I'm very familiar with the Dahomey history. So when I saw more Southern African actresses and actors in the movie more than the West, it's like interesting. Okay, it's just it kind of rubbed me off the wrong way.
I didn't want to do that though, and I'll tell you why. Because I thought if I did what you're saying, then I will fall into the trap of being like the people who are part of FBA, who complain when they see Black people from Britain playing Black American roles, and they're like, why is this person from England playing this role? They're not FBA. So I don't want, even though I can see Viola Davis, this is Black American woman, I could see another woman who's Jamaican, British, but I don't want to go down that road. They're talented, they can play the part. So it would have been nice to have a bit more authenticity. But the truth is, nobody knows any famous person from Benin except for Jaimon Honsu. So
I mean,
nobody knows.
I that's why I'm like, I feel like before they should have done the movie, they should actually did the movie in Benin, because they did it in South Africa. So that's why I'm just like, but the situation didn't happen there. I mean, I understand what you mean by you don't want to look like the FBN situation, but it's like a South African or an Egyptian playing Shango of a Nigerian, history. It's gonna look like, well, it didn't happen there, if you know what I mean. I'm just I'm thinking differently.
I would say this, if they shot the movie in South Africa, I thought it was shot in Benin because the way. So I've been to Abome, like I've been there. I've been to King Gezo's his palace, and the way they staged in South Africa, it looks exactly like the palace in Abome is still there, like the courtyard, everything. Like it looked, they did a great job doing that.
Yeah, but it was shot in South Africa. So that's why I was a little bit upset that, I mean, Benin has beautiful landscape they could have used, but I guess they didn't feel like they could use that area for the situation.
And you know what? Okay, that makes sense then, because the scene where they showed the white European showed up, that looked like Cape Town. That looked like Clifton
Exactly.
Beach.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that looked like Cape Town. Okay, I'm like, hold on, this ain't Benin, because I saw the mountains and the hills. I'm like, this ain't Ouida. So that looked exactly like Cape Town. So okay,
Yeah.
okay. Cater Traore, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope everyone is doing good. I I just have some questions. I'm originally from Guinea, West Africa, and these discussions have been really important to me, and I really like what you're doing, Dynas. The question that I have is
Are you from Conakry or Bissau?
yes, Guinea Conakry.
Okay, go ahead.
So I hear a lot of talks about Africa being engaged in slavery before slavery started, before Europeans came over to start slavery. Uh, what I wanted to know is, are we differentiating prisoners of war from slavery? Because a lot of small kingdoms at that time were fighting between each other, and whenever they will go to fight, they will capture people, and these are prisoners of war, and they will use them, of course, to their advantage. But are we calling these people slaves, as in, um, how the Europeans are trying to use them as?
Absolument.
Yeah, but Tori, I think Tori, when you study African history and the slave trade, I can't think of another time outside of the Arab slave trade in East Africa where Africans, black people,
Mhm.
were catching other black people and then completely selling them to another race of people. Like that, just wholesale and in mass. Like it's just like, okay, so these are your indentured servants, and you're gonna completely just sell them to another
So,
completely different race of
so
people
I will give you
for
one example.
and cater for trinkets. We're talking about umbrellas,
No, no,
gin.
no. Here I'm talking about
Just like
prisoners of war. It's not. That's what I want to make a differentiation with. When you have people that are captured through war,
right.
it's completely different from people that you sell over a kingdom that engages in selling people to Europeans for servitude, knowing very well that they're selling these people for guns. An example is like during the Mali Empire, when they will go, when they had troubles with other kingdoms, they had a rule with their war. They had rules in the wars that said that you can't kill women, babies, and elderly people during the war. So what are you supposed to do with these people after the war is over? Like, how are they supposed to integrate your society? And like, if you were living, let's say, 400 years back, what would you have done? Let's say you're the king, and you have a war with another kingdom. You have prisoners of war. What do you do? What's your plan of action?
Well, I mean, those prisoners of war, when they were integrated into African society, into those kingdoms that they were caught by, and they became indentured servants to the point where they became part of those communities. Like I
Exactly.
said, but like I said, nowhere in history, at least prove me wrong, where
Hmm.
one race of people were
Hmm.
selling their own people, warring kingdoms, enemies, or whatever, to a completely different race of people wholesale. And we're like, oh, we didn't know what these foreign people were gonna do. We had no clue. I'm not really buying that.
You need to define the context, Diners, and the time, because you're talking about 400 years. You can't just, and these people were strategic in how they came over Africa. It wasn't like one day they came and we're gonna trade slaves. they first started capturing people from the coast, sent missionaries. They had their own strategies. They knew what they're doing beforehand. And also, one other point that I wanted to bring out, between 1800 and 1900s, that region between Senegal, Guinea, Mali, up to Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast, saw the over 24 resistant fighters. These are people that had their own armies that were actively fighting against colonialism. So and that's not even being talked about.
Against colonialism or against the slave trade?
Against colonialism, against slavery. I'm sorry, against slavery, not colonialism. I'm
See,
sorry.
this is what I, because this is the story I've been to just about every slave dungeon in West Africa, and from what I've gathered, pretty much it was a lot of the African tribes were complicit and worked with the Europeans in selling selling slaves. Then maybe down the line something happened and they stopped it.
No, they found out what happened. After they found out what was really happening, they started to rebel. This was the case of people like Samori Toure and Zebola Tobapivi, Dina Salifu. These are when they found out that Europeans were really here they were really exploiting people through labor in that sense, and they started to rebel. They were kings of their own nation, and they started going against.
What were they? Okay, just give me an idea. What Africans, when they sold other Africans to Europeans, what were they expecting? Because I've been down the slave routes. I've heard the stories. I've seen the chains. So literally, Kedar, so you literally had Africans chained up with other Africans, but hold on, Kedar, butt ass naked, defecating on each other, throwing up on each other, just being being fed slop just enough to make it to the boats. And Africans were witnessing this. They were sitting there witnessing this as they were being marched to the boats, marched to these slave castles. So, like, what were you guys thinking? So when you keep saying, you keep bringing up the whole hold on, Trocator. When you keep bringing up the whole indentured servitude and serfdom, so basically, is that how? If I was an indentured servant back before white people showed up, I was chained up. We were piss on each other, do boo boo on each other, be fed slop. That's why I just don't understand that. Well, we didn't know what was going to happen because it's just
Dynast, you said you visited these places, right?
Right.
And I'm assuming these are places that are around, Elmina, probably Ghana or Nigeria. Those they have places there where you can still see where they used to trade slaves.
Right.
But I'm talking about a specific region, and the reason why I'm talking about this is because when you study history from a French perspective, it's very different from, English perspective. It seems like there is a complete disconnect of information. You don't even understand why some people think some way. Did you see these kind of things in these things happening in that region? There's only one in Senegal. You don't see any slave outpost in Guinea, or if it was existent, it was destroyed by the people that were fighting at that time, or even Mali. You can't find any, because in the 1800s people started rebelling and they destroyed them.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean slaves didn't come from Guinea or.
No, I'm not saying that slaves didn't come from Guinea. I'm not saying that some people were not really with the white people to enslave some black people. This happened. This is a fact. But the way it's being generalized is just wrong. To say that all of them were their kingdoms going against other kingdoms simply because they found out that they were engaged in slavery. And what do you do when you're fighting against someone and they have a gun, and that person got a gun from a white person, and what do you do?
Okay, Kedar, this is the issue I have with this argument. So Africans had gold, palm oil. I mean, there were so many different goods that you could have traded with Europeans for guns. That's why I'm
That's
not
true.
buying that we had no clue what they were doing with these slaves.
Well, with that situation where we didn't had no clue, it's a gray area where they did and they didn't, you know? So what I mean by that is like, let's say, a lady and she has two kids, and she can't afford to feed her kids. But she saw Dynast who has, a house and cars and stuff like that that needs assistance, extra hand. And then she's like, okay, well, Dynast, how come I have two grown sons that instead of you taking your car to the car wash, my kid will wash your car for you every day, every Sunday. They will clean your house, they will cook for you, they will do everything, right? And then you would then pay them, and then they bring that money back to their mother and feed their families. Now, let's say something happened where they broke a plate or broke one of your artifacts and you got upset and smacked them across the face. It happens like that, and then it goes from, okay, well, I can hit this person and oh wow, they're afraid of me. Okay, I'm gonna keep doing it. That's the difference. And we've been doing that for years, and some people still do it till today, right? So, or like some people who like travel a lot, they will have someone to watch their house where they leave, unattended. So when you come back, you'll come back to a clean home, clean bed, everything. But then when the Europeans came in and saw what we were doing, they took it differently because one, like they said, they've never seen a black person before, right? And they thought that we were dirty, we were this, like, so it's a gray area between they didn't know and they didn't know.
But you forget about the other thing, though. You forget about the stuff that people who were used as slaves were also sacrificed in certain cultures.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
so those people who were captured, they didn't want to be captured, and they didn't want to be sacrificed, and they didn't want to be enslaved. And plus, you had kingdoms. I'm talking specifically about the kingdoms. In order for a kingdom to exist, it needs to expand. So it goes into territory, and the people in that territory might not want to be ruled. So they might decide to pick up arms and defend themselves. And when they lose, they find out that the person who came into their land now has power over them and
Correct.
does with them whatever they want, enslave them, sacrifice them, do what they want. So it wasn't necessarily the advent of the European in there increased the slave trade. But I believe that, well, that's me. I believe a lot of the kingdoms, they were complicit. They were already practicing slavery. Yeah. Whether they say their form of slavery was a much better one, the fact of it to me is the people they captured didn't want to be slaves. So straight away, you're taking people without their consent. And whether you're saying you'll be my houseboy and be working, or you'll be working on my farm, is irrelevant. The fact is you're taking people without their consent, which is bad. So whether it's the in-house African slavery or doing slavery with Europeans, in my opinion, they're both bad and can't be excused.
Sure. Al, go ahead, Al. All right, going once, going twice. Let me bring Kala. Give me 1 second. Guys, do me a favor. Hit the like button again. Please hit the like button. And don't be afraid to super chat as well. Don't be afraid to super chat. But please, guys, if you have not hit the like button, hit the like button. All right, go ahead, Kala.
Okay, this is a problem. Like I said, we have a history. We all know the truth, and we just don't want to face it because the slavery in America created this myth of the white man being Thanos and everything. That's our focus. But we never dealt with slavery and black. What the last brother just eloquent said. Nobody wants to be a houseboy. There's no such thing as a good form of slavery. And that's why, like I said, I mean to bring the topic up, but Liberia was so important. Liberia is where we made our stand and said, hell no. Eliminate slavery in all forms of this territory. Let's get rid of it. No, there's no houseboy, none of that stuff like that. When you hold somebody's life over, that's what liberty and freedom's all about. That's what we brought back to Africa with Liberia. That's why Liberia, we cannot let these people disparage the name of a country Liberia, because Liberia was a light in the dark continent, and I hate to say that about my motherland but slavery and human sacrifice, bondage is evil. Burying a 14-year-old girl under a tree for a good omen is evil. We got to start saying it like it is. Europeans just came and took it to a whole new level. Okay, and about this thing what I want to say. I don't want to stay on too long. Throughout history, right? And this is why, like I said, despite we talk about Africa has kingdoms and everything like that, but what's knowledge if you don't know how to apply it? In northern Nigeria, right? They had some most advanced scholars in the world during the 1800s, right? Timbuktu, from Kano, all these places were learned men. How could you basically have all this knowledge, right? They knew all about the world. They knew about the outside world. They knew about slavery. They knew about the transatlantic slave trade. But yet it still happened. You know, what is about that? So I'm saying like this. Other groups of people, here's the problem, right? Black people, right, except for the African Americans, do not have a sense of race pride, right? We still, you listen to people on the panel just now, we still have this idea that race does not matter. Okay, color does not matter. Okay, when the Mongols were threatening the Han tribes and everything, Han nation, they all banded together. When the Persians were threatening the Greek states, what happened? The Spartans, the Greek, the Tracians, and all these other people said we have an external threat. We hate each other. The Athenians and Spartans, after the Persian threat, went to war with each other. But it said, but the outside threat, because in every other culture, right, the enemy far away is more dangerous than the enemy near you. You know, so we don't like each other, but hey, that guy right there, he's fighting. We're fighting. He's fighting on our flank. You know, we got it. But only the African saw the European as a friend and the fellow African as the enemy. And it's like that to this day, 2022, where you got Africans thinking, I'm a British African, I'm superior to the French African. I'm a French African, I'm just calling out niggas in Portuguese Africa, I'm superior to them. You know, tribal, Europeans manipulate tribe. Europeans always identify Africans by their tribe. They'll never call you a black African. They go to South Africa, right? They'll say, oh, the Zulu. They always want to keep tribalism and friction up between that and control, because we haven't had any unified thing saying this is about black unity and black power. You know, you're a black man first. They don't like people like Julius Malema, you know, who's a black power and black first. They don't like that. And so, like I said, particularly at West Africa, I don't know if there's any hope. They're still holding on to their little, making excuses for, oh, yeah, well, we did this. Why are you living in France? Why are you living in the UK? If it wasn't that bad, you should be in Africa right now building shit. Yeah, it was bad. You know, we got to repent and atone for other nonsense and move forward. Why is all the gold in Mali sitting in French banks? Why is the gold in Ghana sitting in the UK? Who's doing this? Why are we fighting? Why the Clean England have Nigerian oil? When are we gonna take that shit the fuck back and say get the hell out of here? Africa for Africans. Oh, we just go on back and forth about this, that, and the other thing and everything, and we get nowhere. That's just my little rant.
Okay, Al, go ahead and unmute yourself, Al.
Yeah, good evening, brothers. Hi, Dynasty, and everyone.
Hey, how you?
Hi. Yeah, I was listening to the brother, Keita. You know, I can understand why he obviously do, because in West Africa in general, I feel like Guinea, and you know, a lot of people don't know that much about the transatlantic slave trade, and also I was listening to Oleri about North Nigeria. I mean, he made loads of good points, which I actually think is quite on what he was talking about. The religion, because during the Sokoto Caliphate, for example, those that were not Muslims were allowed to be slaved. It's basically when you're captured, you know, when a place got invaded, for example, during the Jihad war, you know, those that refused to convert to Islam were allowed to be a slave. But however, you know, being a slave during those days is not what you're thinking about, like, you know, like in what you see in the transatlantic slave trade. You know,
there's no such thing as good slavery, bro. There's no such thing as good slavery. I'm sorry. There's no such thing as good slavery.
You was allowed to own a land. You were allowed to own a land. You was allowed to.
There's no such thing. We'll start like this. Let's start like this, right? There's no such thing as good slavery whatsoever.
Carla, I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, but it was a different type of slavery. So you got to get that right. Yeah, you know, You know, in Africa, slavery existed in Africa, but people didn't understand that. Before the white man came to Africa, there was already slavery in West Africa. You can't deny that.
Okay, West
It is a side
Africa
fact.
had. Oh, okay, I get the fact that because you have to have where people were slaves because they were punished for crimes. They lost wars. That things happen,
War
right?
prisoners, war prisoners, war
But the
prisoners.
whole
Yeah.
thing is that's a different thing than chattel slavery, right? What was beginning to
Yeah.
happen with Europeans, thing with your Africans were experimenting in chattel slavery. Okay, it's not different. If you basically, if somebody's a debtor, right? Somebody usually slave was somebody who was in debt, and you got to work for a period certain, right, to pay that debt off, whatever like that, or some sort of tributary. Okay,
Yeah.
and in many countries they have what they call a pawn system, right, where young men
Yeah.
were sent to a chief or something to work for a certain amount of years, of labor and stuff like that. That went on. That's what they call pages and stuff
So
like that. And then eventually they work up
okay.
and then somebody else do the same thing for them. You know, but
Yeah.
what we're talking about
Yeah.
is we're trying to confuse the same thing is when you talk about the brutality of the Atlantic slave trade and that whole culture that I feel today that really affects Africa and the black world to this day. You know?
Oh yeah, that's a different old category. But I'm just starting from the beginning before the white man come to Africa, right? This was already existing in Africa. You know, you can't deny that, right? So when when the white man came to Africa, they exploited the transatlantic slave trade, as I was saying yesterday, due to infighting between tribes, right? They come and side with the other tribes. You know, for example, in Sierra Leone, you had the Crew, right? The Crew were one of the biggest slave catchers, yeah, and because they don't want to get slaved, what they do is they side with the white
Yeah,
man,
the crew tribe,
yeah,
the crew tribe
yeah,
were the biggest slave allies on the coast. They had the infrastructure set up to aid and abet. The crew tribe
yeah.
also told what slaves, what people were rice growers, what slaves were this. This is where you want to get
Thank you.
them from. Everything.
Like the Jula and you know and the Chabros and you know and all these tribes that actually live just around the coast. Because don't forget, a lot of these countries were the southern frontier of the Mali Empire. So don't forget, the Mali Empire was already start falling apart. And we
Yeah,
had other tribes. We already had other tribes like the tribe down to Ghana, Ivory Coast. This tribe was already in. They were already fighting with the Fula and the Mandinka, and the other tribes that already were Muslims, right? So the religion differences between those two tribes already brought the tension between them that made it so difficult for them to actually work
right.
together. Yeah. So
Let me
over the
Al,
years,
let me say this.
yeah,
Al, let me say this, right?
yes,
Do you know that West Africa, prior to the collapse of the Songhai Empire, right? If you look at
yeah,
when the trading routes that came from the coast all the way to the what's the Kola Nut coast, right, to the interior and the
the Guinea
north
coast,
south, the Guinea
yeah.
coast, and then also the coast of the Gold Coast and stuff like that. When that
Yeah,
happened, right, West Africa was the most powerful region in the world,
of
right?
course, of course.
but but
The
but,
you know,
but here's the thing. Here's the
don't
thing. Here's the thing. Let me say something. Right. Uh, the the thing is, once the Songhai Empire collapsed, right, and the people started migrating to the south, you had large groups of people moving into lands that were occupied by the Ashanti and everything like that. That was
yes,
fine, right? They got along until the
yeah,
Europeans came, and the
yeah. That's
Europeans
what I said.
weaponized the tensions against the different Africans who were basically seeking
Thank you very
refuge
much.
and,
Yeah,
and things.
yeah.
See, I know African history inside and
Yeah,
out. No one can debate me on
that's
this,
good.
right?
That's
Hey,
good.
hey,
They
guys,
get
Plain and simple.
let's do this. Let's Motore. Go ahead, Motore.
okay.
Hello, brothers. How's guys
Hello.
doing? I hope everything all right. So me, I know a little bit about this because my English is a little bit French inside, So and the slave trade, from my perspective, like because we have a culture that's like the people are talking about
Caste system.
Mali Empire. So some people made me, try to explain, in the wrong way. Before Mali, it was a Mandingo Empire. it wasn't even empire, it was a kingdom.
Yes.
So it's a big Mandingo kingdom. And from this kingdom, we have 49 charts. I don't know in English or how they call. They call Karakamfuga chart. I don't know if you guys know about it. So because we get all this story from because our ancestors, we had the people that they call jelly. They're musicians, and now Jeliba, exactly. So from that point, like from the top, from the beginning, from Sunjata to all this, so they explain all the stories. And this Karakamfuga, people are talking about slave in Mandingo time. The 47 part, point about this chapter, they talk about it wasn't slave. It was the war. How they call it? War. War prisoner.
System.
War prisoner.
Okay.
It was a war prisoner, and those war prisoner was treated it can even have a wife inside the kingdom.
That's right.
But if he behave himself in the proper way, it's a war criminal, it's a war prisoner, but he will get some kind of labor to do, so that they will find out if he's if he changed the behavior and so on. And from that point, if they found out it's good, everything is perfect, he can even get a wife, or he can marry, inside the kingdom that time. So it wasn't a slave; it was a war prisoner, because that time, it land issue and so on.
And Mo, basically what happened when white people came, those same war prisoners who were allowed to marry, let me finish, Mo. They were allowed to marry, allowed to have land. When white people came, you guys started selling them to white people, and they were just shocked. We're shocked when you found out and have land where they were taken to. That's what you're saying.
And from that point, from what we heard from the Jeliba, it's a story. It wasn't white men came first to enslave African people. From the Mandingo time, Mandingo people was not there was a spiritual people, but at that time, Muslim was the first, to mix with African people from that point. So the time of Sunjata
dynasty.
The time of Sunjata, the forefather of the kingdom, the Mandingo kingdom, before Mali Empire. Mali Empire is just recently, people try to mix up, but Mali was an empire. The Mandingo was the kingdom. So all this become Mansa Musa, they call it's not even Mansa, we call it Kanku Musa, because they give the mother name to him, who is Kanku Musa. The mother is Kanku, and he's Musa. So to make it different, because it was a lot of Musa in the kingdom that day. In our tribe, when it's to make different, they give the mother name to the to the son to make it different. So that the mother is the Kanku Musa, and he they give to make it different. So from the Sunjata time, the forefather of the Mandingo Empire, the slavery issue, it wasn't. We don't even have a word as a slave in Mandingo language at that time. So it was just the fact was a prisoner. And after that chapter, because the Mandingo people were spiritual, but the mix up of people from a different religion, it was inside the chapter even. So everybody can live in the symbiosis, in the proper way. Everybody respect religion and everything together. And from that point, that was kind of the mistake when they explained to us. After that chapter, it's the first chapter in the world. You see, I don't know if you guys know about it. Karamfuga chart is the first chart in the world before all this democracy, people to live together and all this mindset. That was Mandingo first who had this chart in the world. Maybe you guys could try to, to Google it and try to find out. Karamfuga chart.
Somebody asked me.
Well, Kyle, let me pass it. Ross I think that's trouble. Go ahead and mute yourself, Ross Mose. Go ahead and mute yourself. Okay, it's a trouble. All right, go ahead, George. Go ahead. Let me pass it to George. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, thanks, Carla, for adding me. I wanted to bring an angle that we might have overlooked, which is reincarnation, the spiritual side of the mindset. Reincarnation, which is that people kept coming back into another existence when they passed on, and in their new existence, it was believed in some cultures that if they did something, because when a child is born,
Yeah, I saw Doctor Strange too, George.
Sorry?
I saw Doctor Strange too the other day, man. Multiverse. That's not the same thing. I'm just messing with you.
Let him speak,
Yeah,
Tyler.
yeah, like me now, in my family, they will say to me that, oh, you are someone that came back, and even till today, like for example, when my dad was buried, my uncle was not allowed to be there because they said he is the same person. So there's a belief. And so for people who did bad in the old days and they were sold off, and they said, well, it's because this person did bad, maybe after slavery, and they die off, they will come back or something. So there was reincarnation. There was a kind of, it was like the person is sold off, then they will suffer, and then they'll come back when they die or something. Because there's always, when a child is born, they always go to check, who is this child? Where have they come for? Are they coming back to suffer what they did in their past and all that stuff? So there was spirituality in those days, in that aspect. Like everyone had consequences they have to suffer for, or somebody has to come to inherit good. So if someone was bad and they came to manifesting, they sell them off. It's quite complicated, but there's reincarnation. They believe in reincarnation. So even like the story of the slaves that they said some of them killed themselves because they said the mindset is they will come back again when they were on the ships and they were what's the word now, they were trying to be free or something.
Yeah, George. Okay. Let me pass it to Colin, and after Colin, we'll pass it to Keisha. Go ahead, Colin.
Okay, this was someone asked a question in the chat why I'm not talking about the homie thing. Like, well, okay, look, this is what I see, right? And like I said, you take it for all it's worth when Hollywood's involved in something. First of all, I'm like, why Viola Davis, right? Why Viola Davis? She's like what, 50, 60 years old?
Hey,
Why couldn't you cast it?
Colin, it sounds like you're like it's
okay. Hold on, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. So why?
Kyle, you got your iPad?
No, I'm in my office. I'm in my office right now. I was saying you had a good topic. I just had to call in. I just want to say a couple points. I'm gonna jump off. Because I'm in my office. Anyway, Viola Davis. What? She's 6 years old. They should have got somebody younger. And then, like I said, you look at the Queen of Zynga. I saw a movie on Queen of Zynga a couple of years ago. Well, of course, it's natural for people to lionize their heroes because we don't see enough. Do you know how many Christopher Columbus movies were made? Do you know how many Al Capone movies were made? You know how many Abraham Lincoln? Everyone have a different perspective of George Washington, Ben Franklin. There's like 20 different stories of Ben Franklin. Was Ben Franklin the statesman, the scientist, whatever. Um, because we don't have enough nuance and diversity in our filmmaking, right? This this film is like dangerous because it's like this is what you're gonna see, because people are not gonna pick up the book and learn through horrors of the Dahomey people. That a lot of them were also mainly Negropeans and Francophone people who were educated in the West and whatnot, and they came back there and they basically said okay, and they were engaged in the slave trade and they really hated Africa themselves and everything. They don't saw that part. Now the warrior queens, we all know about that and everything, but the Dahomey was a really unique situation. It was basically Black France in West Africa, you know? And so my point I'm trying to make is this. Just like Shaka Zulu, we have one Shaka Zulu made, right? And we saw Shaka, you know, we are growing high. You hyped up. But Shaka did a lot of bad things, you know? And we don't see the whole spectrum. No one's ever came up and say, okay, well, this is another story. Just like with Abraham Lincoln, when Steven Spielberg did Lincoln, right? That was based on what? Not Lincoln's debates and stuff like that. It was based on the waning years of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment and what Lincoln thought about it and everything. Now, somebody else did. I see many with Lincoln. They focus on him as in a log cabin, you know, as a thing. We don't have enough writers. I say like this. I cringe right now that somebody, a Negropean or European, is going to get a hold to making the writing the book about Mansa Musa. They're going to fuck it up because let me tell you something. I started a project of the Mali Empire, but I realized after seeing Dynast, right, I have to go to Jenny. You know, there's certain things when Dynast was walking around Jenny and Mopti and all these places that I have to feel for myself before I write this book. I have to make my way there before I write the Empire of Gold, the Mali Empire. You know, I have to go there, right? There's certain nuances. There's certain things I know about West African history that's not talked about, like the Wangara, the Dayula. You know what I'm saying? The different rights and lineages and stuff like that that I've studied over the last 30 years. You know, and so all this stuff, if it's not put there, right, it's going to get lost, and I fear that, right? You go to Mali, right? You go to Mali, the Timbuktu. They have tens of thousands of books. They have people that got tens of thousands of books. We should be taking these books, right? They're translating to English, right? And they should have books that have records of what the people are wearing and everything. But we don't care about it. All we care about is ancient Egypt and Kemet. And so therefore, some white person, some French person, gonna get a hold of this, right? They're gonna twist our history the way they think we should be interpreted, right? Just like they're doing this movie right now. They want to make all these black queens and whatnot. Why are they doing this right now? Why are they doing it? Why the black queen? Look at Black Panther. I think they're gonna make Shuri the black female Black Panther. It's all about this gender thing, this black girl magic, and all this stuff like this. Yeah, and all this kind of nonsense. And also, like I said, when you have situations like this where the real history, like I said, we haven't seen a movie yet. But the whole thing is the warrior queen. So it make it seem like the queen's all just and everything. Queen Nzinga. People don't realize that she was involved in the slave trade. And the only reason why she was with war with the Portuguese because her originally slave trade was with the Dutch. And so therefore she's not her hands were not clean in history. We have these nuances in history. We love these characters. We love all these people like that, but we have to thing. We cannot keep allowing we have to really start building Africa, right? Right. So we can't rely on movies to keep giving us like a drug fix, and we just get high. Oh yeah, I went to the movie, man. That was an African. Remember how high we were when we came out of Black Panther? Remember that? Everybody doing the Wakanda dance and everything. That lasted what a year? You know, we get high. Oh yeah, Wakanda. Same thing. You know, you get high on the movie and everything. And the situation in Africa does not change. We have to change the situation. We have to build the black race. We need more authors. We need more scholars. We need more builders of this thing. And then we can insulate. Then we can sit back like I'm gonna land here. You can sit back like the white person and be like this. When like, let me give you an example. A few years ago, CBS tried to do a TV series on Ronald Reagan. Fox News shut it down. Why? Even though there's many different movies, they said because they try to portray him as bumbling and stupid and absent-minded and stuff like that. And Bill O'Reilly went on a tangent, and they pulled it, right? And so the bottom line is why? Because they got several different movies of scholars around Ronald Reagan that they said this is what we want to show you. Whereas black people, we don't have that, right? So whatever they put out there is what we have to consume. We have no choice in the matter. We can't stop and say, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't like the way this person's being portrayed. Don't do the movie." You know, the
Hey,
same thing
Colin, let
like
me
when
tell
they
Colin, let me pass it to Keisha. Go ahead, Keisha.
okay.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this real brief. All right, so I have a question, but I'm gonna start with this. You know, we know that no type of slavery was good, and we also know that, you know, like, well, what we would call indentured servitude. You know, we know that that was bad as well, but we have to look at it like this. Like, even in the Bible, like, I'm not gonna go deep into the Bible, but it talks about how when somebody was sold into slavery or indentured servitude, they would have to serve for 7 years. Do you think that these people thought maybe, okay, you know, we'll sell these people slaves or whatever, and maybe they won't be slaves for the rest of their lives, they won't ever see freedom ever again? Do you think that that could be something that they probably thought back then?
I'm
They
not
didn't
buying
give
that.
a
Go ahead.
damn back then. They didn't care.
You don't think they cared? But at some
They didn't
point it
care.
had to, I feel like at some point it had to stop, because once they started figuring out the severity of slavery and they started, you know, it started backfiring on them. Like, for instance, like, you can listen to some firsthand slave accounts here on YouTube. And there was a guy who was talking about how, you know, they, like, the Europeans would tell him, "Oh, well, you come here, come, you know, we have jobs over in the West or whatever. You all can work for us. You'll be able to make the money. You'll be able to make this, and this to take care of your family." And they would kind of coerce people into getting on the ships and telling them, everything will be all good. It's work over here in the West. And before they could even make up their mind about wanting to go or not, they would just take off and basically kidnap the people.
I think that those stories like that was far in between. The majority of the people who were became slaves in the West, they were definitely sold by other Africans. Those are like one offs.
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking that had to happen like towards the ending of slavery. And at some point it had to be cut off. That's why they felt like they needed to kidnap people.
I don't know, because you had what happened in Lagos in around, I think it was 1851, the bombardment of Lagos, the reduction of Lagos, when the British Navy was fighting against the king there, the monarch Kosoko, because the British were trying to get rid of slavery, supposedly. And Kosoko, the king, the Lagos monarch, didn't have a problem with slavery, because at that time, when the British officially abolished slavery, they had the sea power, so they would use their ships to intercept slave ships and free the slaves. That's what the history books say. And they would clash with certain Africans on the continent who still wanted to continue slavery, which is why you had the bombardment of Lagos in 1851. The British were bombarding Lagos because the king at the time, Kosoko, was using slaves and didn't have a problem with slavery, whereas the British were trying to end it. So I think by then the Africans, not all Africans, I don't want to say, but there were kingdoms who were well aware that people didn't want to be enslaved, didn't give their consent to be enslaved, but they just didn't give a damn, because it was economics, it was money, it was trade, and so they didn't care. Well, what we take for granted now with human rights convention and racial politics, be good to your fellow black brother and sister. A lot of those people back then, that type of political way of thinking didn't exist. There might have been the odd small tribe that did not practice slavery in any shape, way, or form, but a lot of the kingdoms did it. A lot of the kingdoms would deliberately expand and go and capture people who didn't want to be ruled and sell them off, because it was trade. It was business to them. They didn't care about their feelings. They didn't care if those people didn't want to be slaves. They didn't give a damn. It was a very harsh way of thinking, which which I'm very much against that. I hope we still don't think like that in certain parts of Africa, but I don't know. But the whole idea of democracy, equal rights, that was not alive and well in Africa during that period. Unfortunately, they didn't care for that type of stuff.
And same thing with King Gezo in this, well, the Dahomey Empire, well, Dahomey Kingdom as well. The British and the French outlawed slavery. The Dahomey Kingdom still wanted to participate in slavery. In fact, like I was saying at the beginning, Barracoon, the movie, the book about Cujo Lewis, who was the last slave that was brought to America. Again, slavery had already been outlawed, but he was stolen. He was taken from, well, he was sold from Dahomey. So they were very aware what was going on. I think what happened, they didn't want to start banning slavery until white people really truly turned on them and started colonializing them. Then they were like, "Oh, we got to stop it." That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's what I think. Thank y'all. I just wanted a little bit of clarification.
No, no problem. Go ahead, Kasha Zulu. Go ahead. Kasha, you got to unmute yourself. All right, going once, going twice. Okay. Idris, go ahead, Idris.
Hello, hello everyone. Hope you guys are
Hello.
having a good day. I like the
Doing good.
debate. I'm enjoying it. There are varieties of perspectives, and I think that's good for a debate. To be honest, I feel like sometimes as Black people, we tend to make the idea of slavery in Africa very nice. Like when people are enslaved, it's a good thing. It's never a good thing. Even today in Africa, we know for sure people that even have mates treat them bad in a way that if you are a liberated human being, you will not appreciate that. So only look at that and see how those days when people have less information, people are not exposed to so much. How can this slavery that we explain slavery in this nice way? How can it really be that when people are so, less informed compared to what we are today? We have all this information at our tip. You look at the Northern Africa today, a lot of people that are running away from sub-Saharan Africa, trying to come through Spain into Europe. You have people who have been enslaved today that we are talking about slavery. People have been enslaved in those regions. And we still want to make the idea of slavery back then to be nice. It was never nice. I feel like, especially the slaves that were captured through wars, those were just mistreated, just bad. Yes, the slavery in America was new to most parts of the world. But slavery, if you consider those times and you look at history, even in the West, there are slaves. They enslaved themselves, they enslaved the people they captured through war, the people they conquered. Slavery was a normal thing all over the world. It's just that when it came to the Black people that were brought to the Saharan trade, it was a different kind of thing that we've learned over the years that happened. You look at the Arabs on the north that came through the north that captured Africans. The reason we don't see theirs was just as bad. It's just that the male were castrated so they could not reproduce in the Arab world, in the Middle East. But Blacks were also enslaved there. So you don't see the evidence of it over the years like you see in the West. Because in the West, they tried to get the slaves to reproduce and make more slaves. But in the Middle East, they did not even want that possibility. So they castrated the men. So they just died off. So I don't think we should even try to make it nice that slavery was this nice. There is no way you can force somebody to do something and that person consider that to be nice. It's not a normal thing. We should not even fathom that. I see people make those history like I've seen people say back in the days there was no wars in Africa. We just loved each other. We just love black people just love themselves. No, every race of a human being, like the Bible says, human beings, we are all flawed. We are not perfect. We all can be bad. Some of us is just by grace and just maybe knowledge and understanding of the world that we try to be nice to each other. But human beings have the potential, no matter what race, to be bad and wicked. So let's accept these things. It was bad. It was bad.
Go ahead, Chrissy. Unmute yourself, Chrissy.
I'm sorry. Could you come back to me, please?
Okay.
Dynast, I wanted to quickly tell you something before. Yeah, go for it, Theo. Sorry.
Wait. I don't mean to cut you off, brother. I just been waiting for a long time. It's economics,
No. You should speak. I've been speaking way too long.
The whole slavery thing is economics. If you were in West Africa and your tribes didn't have guns, your goose is getting cooked. It was an arms race. The whole thing was an arms race. Like they were battling. They didn't care about these POWs. All they cared about was getting the weapons to fight, whether it was the white man or the other tribes. Like people pretty it up, like, oh, they didn't know that they were gonna be ill treated. They didn't really care, because at the end of the day, it's just like what we have here with gangs. It's the same thing. I think the gangbangers are the ancestors of those guys, because it operates the same way, right? They were like the middlemen, and the white men they were just like supplying them. You know what I'm saying? And these like chiefs were like all middlemen. It's basically similar to the drug trade. And you said that why didn't they use like diamonds, and they didn't know how to extract a lot of those stuff until the white man came, truthfully, other than iron and gold. So slavery was in demand, so it was a market for it, so they supplied it. It was brutal, but it's human nature, it's history,
All right, go ahead, Larry.
Hi, can I? Okay.
Yes, I just wanted to mention, because I mentioned earlier that the famous Amazons ended up in America in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. But what I forgot to mention was that in 1890, when the French defeated them, they then took some of them and exhibited them in France. And they took between 50 to 60 of them, and then they were exhibited. I can't say that word properly. Exhibited in London in a place called Crystal Palace, which no longer exists. The Crystal Palace no longer exists, but it was a big show, and they had the Amazons there, and people came to see them, and the newspapers wrote about them favorably, saying how amazing they looked, and it was quite a show. So the Amazons seem to have developed a fan club where Buffalo Bill wanted them in America, and then they were being shown off in France, and they were also being shown off in London. So I guess they were liked by the Europeans and the Americans as well.
Go ahead, Chrissy.
Oh, yes. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I hope you can't hear because I'm driving, but I wanted to join the conversation and just say a few things. You see this slavery thing? Slavery ruined not only Africa, and then I won't say ruined, but it really destroyed Africa as we know it. We will never have an Africa the way it was, the way the civilizations were organized, the way that the people were organized as nations. That will never be again. The biggest thing is it destroyed our international reputation as people. That stain still hangs over our heads today. That's the biggest problem. Growing up, the way you're taught about Africa, you do romanticize it. And I had to come to the conclusion that there's really nothing to, I'm not going to say there's nothing to romanticize. great things that happened throughout African history. African people did amazing things, civilizations, astrology, mathematics, etc. But when it comes to our treatment of each other, I think a lot of them did know. And I can just look at the way we treat each other today as confirmation of that. Because today, you have people in Africa and in the Caribbean who are helping to smuggle their own people. You know, a girl will go, like I tell you, the Caribbean girl will go, she thinks she's going for a job. Next thing she knows, she wake up, she's in a different country, human trafficking, right? It happens in the Caribbean. It not as much, but it does happen. It happens in Africa. People trying to go abroad, trying to get a job. Like, yeah, I got a job for you. You know, you're a girl from Kenya. Next thing you end up in Dubai. They take away your passport. They're mistreating you. We know how our people are being treated. We know now, and we knew then, and we don't care. The worst part is, to me, is that yes, you would say there wasn't a concept of race. The most ingenious thing white people did was develop this concept of race and rally around it. Ingenious. We lost that race. We lost the race to the race. And because we still don't get it, we are suffering today. The inhumanity, the degradation that Black people live in around the globe, anywhere we go, we are on the bottom of that society. And I think the only way things will change is we have to do a major transformation of the mind. I don't even know if it's possible. I don't even know if we have the capacity to do it. I think God got to step in. It has to be a divine intervention because some of us, our minds are so seared. You know, the way we treated each other, the way we treat each other today, understanding the concept of race, understanding where we are globally as people, and still. So that slavery was a cascading down. And it's just like we still can't get up from it, you know. And those who thought they were digging a hole for others end up falling in the hole too. It was the worst decision Africa ever made to engage in slavery with Arabs first, with Europeans, and still today you have forms of slavery in Africa. Absolute worst decision. We continue to pay for that decision. And
Cassie,
until we transform the mind, we will continue to pay again. That's it.
Hey, one second,
Cassie.
Theo. You got an echo coming from. But go ahead, Theo, and we'll pass it to Melvin. Go
I
ahead, Theo.
mean, the Romans enslaved the Germans and the Gauls and the Franks. Civilization takes time. Everybody was dominated at one time. What you got to do, you got to learn from it and build from it. This all takes time, right? Slavery happened. It was horrendous. It was bad. But good things came out of slavery, right? It caught us
Like
up
what?
to the level of the
Like
white
what?
man.
Like
Yeah,
what?
like
Like
what?
what? Like
Let
what?
me explain. We're up to his level now. It's only our inferior complex that is holding us back,
You're
right?
saying slave, so, but hold on, Theo. I disagree because I was told that the African taught the white man how to bathe. I was told that the African taught the white man how to wipe his butt. The
Yeah.
African. Let me finish, Theo. The African built the pyramids, while the Europeans were crawling around on all fours. So we were above the Europeans, but with slavery, we dropped right below them. We dropped below them.
No, certain areas in Africa, like Egypt, certain kingdoms, yes. So similarities to when the Romans went into Germany, right? Not all the German tribes were tribalistic. They had federations and they had kingdoms as well. But what I'm saying, eventually something good came out of it, right? The Germans surpassed the Romans. You see what I'm saying? Technologically and culture wise, because Germany is richer than Italy now, and Italy, the Romans used to dominate Germany. They used to, they used to
That
be
worked
there.
for them. How is it working for us? I still haven't heard
It,
the
it,
answer to
it,
that
The thing
it,
question.
it,
is,
it, it
the
oh,
thing is,
wait, brother. Let me finish that. I see it. It's gonna work for us. You know why? The Chinese man is my example. Mr. Chin. Mr. Chin was embarrassed, right, by the Europeans. The great shame. the opioid, where they purposely flood China with opioid to 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 kill their society so they could take them over, right? They embarrassed them so much. The Japanese embarrassed them, you know, all the Europe, but eventually they learned from that great shame. Never again, right? Just like when Israel was taken over, right? And they got their freedom, they have a chant, never again. So what we got to do is learn from where our ancestors went wrong and make sure that it never happens to us again. But it'll take time. But civilization is good, but slavery is bad, yeah. But civilization is good, and to the Africans, they're complicit in it too, because they know what they were doing. It was an arms race, you know. They needed guns, because if you didn't have guns, your kingdom would be taken over, and you yourself, king or peasant, would be a slave. So yeah, I just want you.
Part of the problem is we're looking at it from our own current perspective. And our own current perspectives are irrelevant.
Hey, Melvin, you gotta. Something's wrong with your connection, brother. Like you gotta take it off a speakerphone or talk it to the phone. So we're not hearing you. Okay. All right, go ahead, Chrissy.
No, I was gonna say he was, he was saying something good has gotten out. I don't see what has got good.
I don't either.
Maybe you could say our cultures are more diverse now, because we got Brazil, we got Black American, we got Jamaican, whatever. I don't know what good, because on an epigenetic level there is still trauma there. When it comes to culturally, we've absorbed dysfunction in our cultures. Okay. Things that we don't talk about, like incest, things we don't talk about, like pedophilia. You know what I'm saying? There are certain things that have become part of the culture that people whisper about, that came out of slavery, how our people were treated, sodomy and all that other kind of stuff. There's certain things that we do behind closed doors, some of our people do engage in, that we weren't even privy to certain behaviors before. We didn't know that lifestyle. Now, let me tell you something. When I was a child, I was so full of myself. I was so proud. I just felt like, this is Black people and we don't do certain things and we don't behave certain way. And I'm like, oh, we don't do that. And I see, some other groups licking dog face. I'm like, oh, we don't do that. And we're clean. Until I grew up, until I became an adult. And boy, oh boy, did I get a wake-up call. Every form of filth you will find Black people in. I was shocked. I was just a sheltered child too, yes. Every form of filth. Things you wouldn't even think of, Black people do. I can no longer hold my nose up like my issue don't stink, because I realize it stink the worst in the room. Okay? So there's certain things we were not even privy to. We're doing all kind of debauchery these days. And you would say a people learn. I don't see us learning. I see us going deeper and deeper. I see like we more attracted to the filth than to the good as a collective. I don't see it. So, yeah, I don't see where the good come from. There were various, you have the Mali kingdom, you have the Ashantis, you had the Nok culture and all that kind of stuff. So you had advanced civilizations. Everywhere wasn't advanced. You had the advancements. Hey, they could have spread their advancement throughout Africa. Instead of becoming Moors and going to Europe and they could have done that. We did not need Europeans to come in and then teach us that our hair is this, and to sell off the mother here and sell off the father here, and to start to buck break, because I was big in the Caribbean, to buck break the men and traumatize the children for generations. We didn't need all of that. We understood God already. We didn't need that either, because we already knew God. There's no people closer to God than people who live with nature. So we knew God already. We didn't need that either. Forms of writing, there were tribes that did writing. We didn't. I don't understand where the goodness is.
Chrissy, you talking more on the cult. Hold on there, bro.
We are product of it.
Hold on, Theo. Let Melvin talk. Go ahead, Melvin.
To say that nothing good. I mean, good and bad are subjective terms. They're very subjective. It's not about good and bad. This isn't Star Wars. This isn't a Star Wars movie. This isn't a comic book. This is real life. Is the lion that kills the zebra bad? He's bad for the zebra.
Hey, Melvin, you sound very like
Yeah,
you're
it's in
mumbling.
and out.
You're not clear at all, Elvin Melvin. Maybe call from another device or call back in, but we can't hear you.
Will you let me back on? Yeah, let me back on.
I'll let you back on. Just gotta call back on a better device. All right, guys. Links in the chat room. Link is in the chat room. If you wanna call in, link is in the chat room. Go ahead, Theo.
What I was saying, guys, I'm not saying all that culture stuff. Yeah, all the paganism, some of their paganism is not good. It had affected our black culture, yes, but the technology that they were able to put give to us, we could take that and we could rule over them eventually, like what Mr. Chin's doing. You know what I'm saying? They brought us to a level of civilization now where we could take the trauma of slavery and make something beautiful, because the Germans were, as I continue to say, were subjugated by the Italians, right? The Italians wrote a whole bunch of stuff about the Germans, said they were lazy, said they were unintelligent, they were nasty, they didn't like to bathe, a whole bunch of things. But now Germany is one of the biggest countries in the world. They're highly looked upon for their engineering. What I'm saying is we can't dwell on the bad things of the past without noticing. If it wasn't for people say, oh, you saying if it was that's like a coon thing, but look, we're in the Western Hemisphere. We are the richest black group on the planet, right? We have a leg up on our African brothers. What we need to do is use that money to help Africa, right? You want to have somewhere you feel comfortable. Western blacks need to take their money and invested into Africa. That's the only way I see us moving forward. We could dwell on slavery. Yeah, what the Africans did were bad, but it's just like the Pookie and the Ray Ray getting the coke from Jose and turn it into crack and selling it to his people. He ain't looking at, oh, that is my brother, he a black man. No, he looking, what can I gain from this? How can I become rich? Right? And we got to understand human nature and separate the race from it. Human nature is the same all over the world, and people say, oh, white man introduced pedophilia, and that's been since the Greeks, and who taught the Greeks? The Egyptians. So who really knows? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying the Egyptians were like that. It's just, I'm just saying it could be objective either way you look at it. Anybody gonna talk?
Yeah.
Hold
on. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second.
Dynast.
Go ahead, Melvin. Let me self Melvin.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? Is it better?
It's an echo, but we'll work with it. Go ahead.
I can slightly hear the echo. I'll turn.
If I could just say one thing.
Hey, but one thing before the sister start. One thing before you
Okay.
start, sis. We have a problem with looking at things from our modern perspective. What we need to understand is there was no concept of we. There was no concept of we. There's no concept of we are Africans. I say that, and also I'll go to the point that yes, they knew what was going on. They didn't care. It was all about money. We're talking about something that lasted for about 300 plus years. 300 plus years, easy. And people grew up. Like the United States hasn't lasted that long. So how much is 300 years to us now? It's just normal. It was normal. It was a part of their lives. They didn't look at it like we look at it now. So all of that, like, look at what China doing. China is a homogenous group of people. Africa is a very diverse group of people. We can't compare Africa to China. It's not even a comparison.
The Europeans had multiple tribes as well.
Yes,
but
and what made those
eventually with the civilization of the Roman Empire, the Great Eagle, the first Great Eagle, we're the second Great Eagle.
The first.
America, right? They were able to take Europe, Western Europe, almost single-handedly out of the Dark Ages, unite them under languages, what they
That
call the
that that sounds good, but that's not true.
So you
That's
don't
not
believe
true.
we could do this in
No, I
Africa
mean, but what
with
you're
the
saying
modern
sounds
time?
good. Like you're summing up a few thousand years of history into a sentence.
Yes,
You know,
that's what you
those
gotta
things
do.
took
I
time.
I can't like go
Like
into it, then we're gonna be
no,
here
I
all
mean, but
day.
Western Europe, you know, the way we look, the reason we look at Western Europe like we do is because we receive Western indoctrination or Western education. When actually the Roman Empire fell in 1453 in Constantinople. That's when the
Yeah,
Roman Empire fell. That's when
yeah,
the Roman Empire actually fell. And that's
the Eastern
also
Roman Empire.
no,
Yeah,
no, no. That was the only Roman Empire at the time.
no,
The
no, there was
Holy
two.
Roman Empire was something founded by Charlemagne that really had nothing to do with Rome.
No.
They were
Charlemagne is different. He's French.
no
He's the father
right.
of
No.
Europe.
That was before they were French. He was a Frank, but they weren't French at the
Frankia,
time.
yeah.
Right,
What
but
you
he was
call a
actually
French
German.
now is a.
He was
It's
actually German.
it's the same thing. They were
It's not the
tribes.
same thing.
They
Right,
were
they were tribes.
tribes. The
They were tribes.
Germans, the Gauls, and the Franks were all tribes. But what? They united under what? A nationality. You don't think
No,
Africa could
they
you
united under Christianity.
you don't think Africa could do that? Africans can't do that. We can't
I don't think it's more than one way to
we,
skin a cat.
we can't unite West Africa under like
There,
on one federation and East Africa under the
that's
East
not what
Africans.
happened. What that's not what happened. You're saying that they did that. However, we had two world wars. We had
They
two
did that.
world wars.
They
No, we
did
had
that.
two world wars. You know what I'm saying? That no, I
But
mean you're saying it like it happened and it's done. We're just dealing with the after effects of World War
Yeah, I
II.
think it's about time you let someone in now.
That's the world that we're living in. We're living in a world. What happened after World War II, and we're looking
But
at Europe as if it's always been like that. It
no,
hasn't.
I'm not saying they've been peaceful and kumbaya. I'm saying we could take a lot of stuff from their history and see what they did to get to where they are and apply it to our stuff so we could get to where we need to go. We can't say, oh, we're the best and we have everything and we don't need when we're struggling. That is crazy
Who
talk.
is we?
I'm talking about Africans,
The
black
thing is,
people,
we are
niggas.
not a we. We're only a we from an
We
ideological standpoint.
we could become a we. You know
But
what
we
is
have to
stopping
become a
us?
we before any of those things are implemented
You
that
know
you're
what
talking
you
about.
know what is stopping us? Tribalism. Oh, I'm Fulani. Oh, I'm Hausa.
It's deeper
Oh,
than that.
I'm
I think it's deeper than that. It's not that
you know
simple. People
no.
not going to throw down thousands of years of generational beliefs
It
just to become a part of something that
it will
doesn't exist.
happen. The Europeans did it. It
Yeah,
will
the
happen.
Europeans did it. They did it.
If
But you know
humans
how they did
see
it.
that
They did it.
something is economically viable, they'll
They
do it.
they
We
did it
don't
through
have to use the
they
sword.
did it through religion.
Why
Christianity is what
Nigerian brothers are
galvanized
so
you.
obsessed with Hausa or Fulani? I don't get it.
Yeah, the Europeans were
You
galvanized.
see my problem? I say
Listen, no,
two
but the
tribes.
Europeans.
He gets in his
I
feelings.
mean, like when
I'm
you
just
say
using
that,
them as an example, bro.
brother. When you
I have
say
nothing
that, it
against them.
sounds awesome. When you say that, it sounds awesome. But what we're
Yeah.
missing is the millions of people who lost their lives till they got to the point that they are now. We're just completely discounting that. What
history
it was like?
is all good
Listen,
and well.
no,
The ancestors is good and well, but we gotta
Europe went
focus
through.
on today.
Europe went through the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
They went through the Christian incursions into Western Europe. They went through the Black Plague, which decimated nearly a half of the population.
Yeah.
That's a different case. We can't look at what happened in Europe and just transpose that onto Africa or superimpose that onto Africa and think the same thing's going to work. There's more than one way to skin a cat.
No,
it can
I
be
know,
done,
but what
we
we doing now isn't working.
We're not doing anything because we're not a we.
Okay, so hold on, sir. You think tribalism is not a major problem in Africa today?
We should kill it.
Of course, it is a problem.
You should be a black man. You should
It
be
is a
black
problem.
first,
It is a
Fulani
problem
second, Hausa
insofar.
second.
It is a problem insofar as us
Just like
recognizing ourselves as a collective.
just
I
like
think
the
it
white
a
man
problem
is
insofar as
European
that.
first and German second, or and French second.
No, I mean, but that's
No,
not
I
the
agree with
case.
that.
Why do we have 2 world wars if it's all
We-
about being white?
We had 2
Well,
world
we should
wars
be. We
is
should be.
because it was a power play. You
right?
know, just
But
just
we
like
have
how we
but
have
amongst
power
white
plays in
people, though.
Africa, but on a smaller
Right? But
scale.
when we see these
Humans are
power
gonna
plays in
fight each
Africa,
other.
when
It's
we see these
human
power,
nature. Back to
well,
what I'm saying.
it's not human nature. Who told you that?
Yes,
Where did we
human
get this
nature
human
to
nature
fight
shit
each
from?
other. Come on.
Where did we get that from? Where you get that from?
It's
Who
been
told you that was human nature?
it's bro.
No,
Ever
who told you
since
that? Why do you think that that's human nature? Human beings
it's
existed
human
for
nature,
thousands of
bro.
years before you had these major conflicts. So why would it be human nature
It's
now?
human
Your
nature to
dynasty
have
take over the show
conflict,
now, man.
right? You
Why
have
would it be
two
human
tribes.
nature now?
Okay,
You
okay,
You can't just
okay.
call it human nature.
Let's pass the mic. Al, go ahead, Al.
You know what? I'm actually a bit confused. You know, the Roman Empire. When we mentioned the Roman Empire, you forgot to mention the Moors, which, you know, without the Moors, like for
They
example in the
weren't all
UK,
African. They were African
exactly,
soldiers, but they were run
exactly.
by the Arabs. So
Well, yeah, okay. Well, there you go. You're coming back to yeah.
the-
Okay, that's during the Almoravid dynasty, right?
that's
Okay.
like saying the U.S. Army was a black empire just
No,
because
no,
we
it's
got
not. No, it's
just
not.
because we no. Listen to the
No, no,
example what I'm saying
no.
before you jump.
No,
Leo,
I
you've been speaking all this time. Let me get in
yeah.
there. Is that right?
All right, go on, go on, go on.
All right. Okay. I'm not saying there wasn't soldiers, but during the Roman Empire, there was black, Arabs, white.
Not that many
Yeah.
black. Mostly gone.
There was the Moors. The Moors were black.
I'm sorry, I have to interject.
The
The word
soldiers.
Moor comes from Moorish, which is a Greek word which means black. The word
Thank
itself
you
means
very
black.
much, madam. You're very, very. You know what? Neil, just listen, man. You've been talking and arguing with the guy all this time. Yeah, you're not making any sense. Honestly, just relax. Yeah.
No
The
man,
Moors.
relax.
Yeah. Okay.
I
The
know about
Moors
them. The
were black,
Moors.
and during the Roman Empire, there was no such thing as, you know, oh, you're black, we're gonna treat you different to, or you're white, we're gonna treat you more better than the others. There was no such thing.
Of
Remember the
course,
Roman Empire?
they
No, there was
disrespected the
no
Gauls.
such
They were
thing.
racist against the Gauls. Their own white brothers.
The Roman Empire, the Roman emperor that
Read
conquered
Thomas
England,
Sowell,
yeah,
bro.
and
You
settled
read
in
Thomas
Bath.
Sowell.
Now, can I
Thomas Sowell
finish?
is a
Can I finish?
crackpot, dude.
He the smartest black man I
He's
know.
a crackpot.
I wish I read
You
him
need to
in middle
meet more
school,
people.
high
You need to
school.
meet more people. Rednecks, that shit was bullshit. I read that shit. He's a white
He's right.
apologist.
He's
a
right.
complete.
We
No, he's
borrowed the
not.
redneck
No, he's
culture.
not. No, he's not.
Who you
What
think taught
what
Africans how to
created
read
what
and speak?
what created the
Can I
redneck?
can I
Rednecks couldn't
speak?
read.
Can
What
I
are you
speak?
talking about?
Can I speak?
The rednecks in Jamaica, the Irish. The Irish taught us. That's why we speak pot the way we speak it.
That is bullshit.
We have a few African words
We
in it,
we
but
mean
that's it.
what do you mean the Irish taught us what?
How to speak English. They were the overseers.
That is
Most of
bullshit.
the Irish came to Jamaica after the potato famines of the late 1800s.
Yeah. And they
So
taught us
no, we
how to
weren't
speak.
speaking English before they reached here. That was in the
They
17th
brought them there. Who you think taught the blacks?
But slavery
They were
ended in
using
Jamaica in the
Irish people before they were
1830s.
using black people. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Yes,
Irish were indentured servants. Irish were not
They were
slaves. You got your
slaves.
They were
history.
They
There
not
was
called
slaves.
them
nobody
in debt,
slave. You
but they
got your
were
history all
slaves.
mixed up.
They were not
Stop reading
slaves.
this Thomas Sowell guy
Yeah,
and go read somebody else.
Thomas Sowell is a fucking
Wrong
asshole,
person.
dude.
Because he
Thomas
come with the
Sowell is
white
the
people
best.
have
the
their
Roman
argument that
It's
Empire.
all
Irish were
economics.
slaves.
Y'all
They were
think it's race,
indentured
but it's
servants
not.
and they were paid after. You mixed up, my friend. You mixed up.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
All
are you
I'm
really
saying
serious
is,
about Thomas Sowell? You're really serious about that?
all I'm saying is, right?
Are you really serious? You think that
Thomas
black people
Thomas
just sat
Sowell
around and
is
were
1,000 times
repositories at
smarter
all
than you,
times?
Melvin. Melvin, Thomas Sowell is 1,000 times
Facts.
smarter than
Come
you.
in,
No, he's not.
Okay,
Pierre.
No,
Tell
he's
let's
them.
not.
just
Yeah,
go.
No,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
not.
Hey,
No,
hold
he
on.
is
Let me,
not.
hey,
I would
hold
challenge
on, hold
you
on. Hey,
Thomas Sowell
Melvin,
anyone else.
Thomas Sowell
Can I
is the shit.
speak?
He's the shit.
Thomas Sowell is a
Thomas
Can
Sowell
you
is
please
an
not
PhD. He
idiot.
has
disrespect
a
Thomas Sowell,
PhD,
man?
He's a
bro.
white
Hey,
apologist.
stop.
And I
He's
Stop.
challenge
the
any of
shit.
you. We could go on another.
He's
We
You
trying to
could go
don't
teach
you
you
don't
somewhere else
about
like
and talk
Thomas
about
Sowell
it.
economics.
I have a
because he
question for
says
you.
things you
He's
don't
an
like.
idiot.
He doesn't
Thomas
know. You
Sowell is
don't
an
like
idiot.
Thomas Sowell because he doesn't denigrate and talk down to like white people enough for your liking. That's why a lot of black people do
I
not
don't
like
like
Thomas Sowell
I don't
Facts.
like
because
Thomas Sowell
because he
Facts.
because
says
he's a
things
white
about black
apologist.
people
He
I
you
don't
do
like
not like to
Thomas
hear.
Sowell,
Paul, and I can sum it up when he
Yeah,
said how
because
we
we know why you don't like
our
Tommy Soul, because
ancestors
the
did
first
all
thing
our
you said
stuff.
Everybody, hold on.
Yeah,
Tell
Dynasty,
Melvin.
let everyone calm down for a minute,
Hold on,
Dynasty.
Al. Pause, Al. Pause. Melvin, why don't you like Tommy Soul? Go ahead. Nobody interrupt. Nobody do not interrupt. Melvin.
Because 20 years ago when I first came upon Thomas Sowell, I used him when I was writing about when I was in college and I was writing a term paper and I read, I think it's Black Rednecks or some shit. I read that. And initially I was agreeing with a lot of stuff he said because I could see it, you know what I'm saying? But when I looked at the culture that created those rednecks, I realized that culture still existed. That not the culture, but the means that created the culture of the rednecks existed amongst blacks. What did you have amongst the culture of the rednecks? You had depravity, you had lack of education, you had lack of opportunities. When slaves were free, they had lack of education, lack of opportunities. They fell into the same shit. It's not like black people just took on an identity. It's not. That's what I'm saying. That was my primary problem with him. We didn't just take
They
on an
did
identity.
when they
That
took us
initially.
ancestors from Africa. They stripped them of their language. Nobody understand nobody. So the Scots and the
No.
Irish
But
had
it
to
didn't
come
all
in to
happen at
teach
one
us.
time, brother. Wait a minute. The
Yes,
brother
of
asked me a
course,
question.
over
Wait a
time.
minute. The
Yes,
brother asked me a question.
yes.
He asked me a question. It
Go
didn't
on, go
all
on, go
happen
on,
at
go
one
on.
time.
I
I'm
think
from
Neo needs
Virginia.
to take a break.
It didn't all happen at one time. We're not dealing with 400,000 Africans coming over here at one time that needed to be educated and taught how to speak English. To be quite honest, you had Africans who spoke English on the West African coast. That's one thing that's
But how
in
many
full proof.
though?
You had
That
quite a
is like
few,
a
especially
small
from
sample size. That don't make no
no,
sense.
no. Depending on the time frame. When the Royal African Company took over, when
White
Bunch
people taught
Island
us
and
English,
James
bro.
Okay,
Island, you
you
would have had
still haven't
several black
told
people
us
who
why
spoke
you
English.
don't like Thomas Sowell.
No, I don't dislike Thomas Sowell. I dislike his scholarship. I dislike what he says. I don't know him to dislike him.
Because it
But I
don't
listen
sound
to
good
Thomas Sowell for about
to
50
your
years.
ear. It's
So
not
Melvin, he hurts your
raw.
feelings. He hurts your feelings,
What?
Melvin.
It's not about my feelings, brother. What did I
Mm-hmm.
say that was wrong just now? You're telling
What
me
did
how I
You
Thomas
feel.
said
I
say that
told
was
you my
wrong?
point. What's wrong with my point?
What
What's
did
you
wrong?
just
Thomas
said he
say
wants
that
to
was
get
wrong?
close to white people. You say he
I
just
didn't
wants to
say
be
that.
white and
I
stuff.
say he's a white
Melvin,
apologist. And he is.
Melvin, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Who taught the black French in West Africa how to speak French? Did they already know French?
Of course, they didn't know French.
Exactly. Then why are you
Right, but
saying
they
the
didn't have
same thing
each and
about
every
the
person did not have to learn it from a
English?
French person. That's how come you had
Come
French
on,
Creoles that
man.
developed. You
But
have
who
French.
taught you the
We're not
language?
listen, brother. We're not
Who
talking
taught
about
you the
something that
language?
happened in one generation. We're talking about something that happened
Of
over
course.
hundreds of
We're
years.
not saying it's not like that. We know
You
it's
can't
not
sum
quick.
it up in a sentence.
You
You
have
can't.
to because it
You
will
can't.
take the whole day.
No. You have to recognize the nuance and how these things happen.
No,
They
if we
didn't
go
happen
the
overnight.
straightforward question is you got conquered. Whatever you spoke before got taken away and you had to learn something new. Am I right or am I wrong?
You mean
Then
the
who
enslaved
taught
people?
you?
My ancestors got
Well, there's
conquered.
a
Yes.
fact in that.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes. My ancestors were conquered. Yes.
Yeah.
And we had
And
to
there's
learn
no
language.
shame in that. The Japanese
No,
got
absolutely no
conquered.
shame.
The
I'm not talking
Koreans
about the
got
Japanese.
conquered. The
The
Chinese
Japanese and
got
the
conquered.
Koreans are only one group of people. Those are both
Neo, you got to
homogenous
stop
groups of
mixing up the
people. I'm not
topic,
going to
man.
compare myself to them because
Where
I don't
you
descend
going
from
with
a
this
homogenous group.
tribalism? You're confusing your
All right,
own
all right,
self.
No,
all
the
right. All right.
Koreans and the
Hold on.
Japanese are trying.
Let's get back on topic. Let's get back on topic.
Yeah, let's. Hey,
Thank
look,
you very much.
I welcome anybody on that sword debate. Anybody. Yeah,
Uh,
fine.
Next minute was
can
talking about the
I
Roman
wanted to.
Empire. Next minute he's just jumping over on something else.
No,
Yeah.
man, I'm using
Hey,
examples, brother. You know how you need to read
All right,
Thomas
stop,
Sowell,
stop
then
I
you'll
scattering,
read.
see
man.
what
Stop
I
I
read a
see.
scattering.
few
Just
of
stick
his
to the
books.
plan, yeah.
Read
Stick
it,
to the
read
plan.
it,
That's
I
no
bro.
read them.
scattering.
You won't
I read
trust
them.
me.
I
Read it,
read them.
read it.
I read them. I
I'm
read them
just
when
a
he was
guy
in
on
the
the
Center
internet,
Club.
but read Thomas Sowell,
I
then
read
you'll
them. I
see what
read
I'll
them.
see.
2 books.
Not
yeah.
you, Melvin, the
Oh,
British brother, the British
Hey,
brother.
can I speak to what Theo Nero was
I'm not
saying
British, you know. I'm
earlier?
not British, man. Just get that right.
I mean, but you speak with
I,
a British accent, blood. What are you
all right,
talking
Theo,
about?
Theo, let it
yeah,
go.
I
Let it
yeah.
go, Theo.
hold on,
Let
hold
it
on.
go. Let it
Yeah,
All
go.
hold
It's
right,
on.
not
I'm
that
just
serious.
messing.
Let it
I'm
go.
done. I'm
Let it
done.
go.
I'm
All right,
done.
go
Uh,
ahead, First Reformation.
I'm
I
done.
wanted to add to what Theo Nero said a little while ago about about how Rome, enslaved a lot of other Europeans, blah blah blah. And he has a point because you got to remember, after a while, the Gauls and the Germans or people in that area, after a while, they stopped with the Romans sold us. They sold us. They got together. together. They started where they did pan Germanianism, and they got
Facts.
together, worked together, and
Like
built on
Patriot,
what
come
they
on
had.
here. He could
So
explain.
so people with this trauma bonding, just like taking all the traumas that our ancestors went through, not us, our ancestors went through, and just to
There
just
you go, my brother.
regurgitating
There
and
you
just
go.
keep bringing it up, keep bringing it up, keep bringing it up, where we're just saying, let's work together and do what's tangible. Like College said a million times, other races of people like building power. That's what they don't, and they have their little religious ceremonies, they have their little cultural things they like to do, but at the end of the day, they do what works for the collective. And all this tribalism and all
Economics.
this, I'm gonna get mine before they get theirs. That's what sunk a lot of these black kingdoms. But those Europeans, they learned from the mistakes of their ancestors, like Romans used divide and conquer, like all the time. Europeans still use it today, and people still fall for it until they stop falling for it and work together. We need to take the trauma that our ancestors went through and just learn. That's it. That's all Theo Nero was trying to say. Y'all was just jumping on him like, I don't know what y'all was jumping
Rifleman,
on him.
rifleman, rifleman, rifleman.
Yes, go ahead,
They
Idris. Go
didn't.
ahead,
They
Idris.
don't. They don't understand. The
Hold on, Theo.
Germans weren't
Theo,
one group of
let
people.
somebody else talk. Go ahead. We got an echo too. Let me mute you. Go ahead, Idris.
For me, there is something I've been longing to ask in this panel, not today, from the past. Even it's the same similar context we're talking about today. As Black people, when can we do an introspection? We need to. We need to look within ourselves. Are we doing the right things? Because I feel like we make ourselves inferior when we always got to see the white man in our business. Everything about us got to be the white man did this, and are we gonna live like that for the rest of our lives, generations of generations? Is there gonna be a point where we're gonna say, okay, let's stop this and see what we as Black people are doing wrong, what we as Black people can do right, and how we can fix things within our communities. For me. That's why when people always want to blame the white man, it bothers me, because I'm like, come on, if you went out there and have 15 babies from 10 baby mamas and you stay poor, please blame yourself. If you selling drugs and you got caught and sent to jail, please blame yourself. Stop blaming the white man. That's where these things is just, I don't know. We never want to blame our people. We always, the moment we want to gang up and say the Black language. No, we have to look at ourselves. And until we can do that, I don't see this getting better.
While looking at ourselves, while looking at ourselves, we also
Good
need
point.
to
Good point.
recognize. We also need to recognize that.
Hold on. This is terrible. All right, go ahead, Melvin. Al, it's you. Al, mute yourself, Al. Mute yourself, Al. It's you. Go ahead, Melvin.
While looking at ourselves, we also need to recognize why we look at the world like we do. Far too often, we don't question our own conventions, because the bottom line is we have a Western perspective. The way we look at the world, we have a Western perspective. We do, because we were indoctrinated to have it, not through some malicious or intentional way. We just were educated in the West, and we were educated beyond going to school. We were educated by the media in general. Media in the very rudimentary terms of the word, meaning a medium between people. We get it from the medium just like they do. So we have very similar perspectives to white folk. We do. It is what it is. I'm saying that we need to understand why we look at the world like we do, and we need to use what we have in common in order to galvanize ourselves and actually become a we, because we aren't a we. There, in my opinion, there is no Black community. There are communities that Black people live, but there are no Black communities, not in the United States, not a single solitary one. Not a single solitary one, not single. And that's the problem. We think we're a we, and we sitting around sounding like white folks with all this individualism shit. We're just being individuals. The way I look at the world, the way I see this, the way I see that. No, it's a much bigger. We need to understand why we are where we are. And until we understand that,
Until we understand that, we can continue to have these conversations, because I know it may be new for many of us. And big ups to you, Prince. You know what I'm saying? I watch your videos all the time. I am Cool Joe Atkins Battle. I watch your videos all the time, you know, and I love it, and I share it with all my people. I share it with all my people, with all your trips, and I love it. It's awesome. You know what I'm saying? None but respect. However, I say this to say, I say that to say that we need to recognize the actual problem, and we don't. We don't. It's not as simple as us doing what the Japanese did, because we're not the Japanese. I've been to Japan. The Japanese are one people. Pretty much. They are pretty much a homogenous group. The Koreans are pretty much a homogenous group. We could compare perhaps Nigeria to China. We could compare Nigeria to Japan, but we can't compare Africa to Japan, nor all of us
Nigeria,
exposed
really.
in the diaspora. And also, we have to understand that this history that we're living in, because we like to think history is being an episodic thing, like this thing happened a long time ago, it happened then, and now we're living now. No, history is not episodic, man. It's not. It's cumulative. We are part of the history from 1492. We are. We are living in a paradigm that started in 1492. Whether we want to know it or not, that's the truth. That's when Western domination of the planet started. And when Europeans came to Africa, they didn't come to Africa to enslave Africans because they thought they were ugly or they thought that they were meant to be slaves. They traded slaves in Africa because slaves were available in Africa. It was available, and they could avoid dealing with the Turks. They didn't have to go through the through the Mediterranean in order to trade slaves. They could deal with the Turks. And to somebody's point, saying what other so-called race of people traded people, the whites and the Europeans in the Baltic regions have been trading other Europeans for thousands of years. Thousands of years. We're just dealing with it now, and we have this now. We're just dealing in a paradigm now. That's why we need to understand world history. We need to understand that we're not unique in this. We're just unique right now. We're dealing with it right now. We have to deal with it from
Absolutely, Elvis. So, guys, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and close out. Hey, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Like, share, subscribe. Until next time, family, Dynasty Mirror Search for Huru. Peace.
Blessings.
I like the way you